Before this video is going to start, I want to mention that I try to uphold a critical and analytical view of the show despite being very attached to it. I believe media should be best be treated by an outsider who first discovers a media through a specific show, and that being their first introduction in the world of said media. That being said, keep in mind I will find things to appreciate and things to not, and this is simply my opinion and perspective. You are free to disagree with me and share your own thoughts as long as you are respectful. This video is also meant to call out certain actions that have not been good and deserve to go into the light. The issue with AI is not related to just Winx Club, and it is a huge disease that is spreading in different corners of the entertainment industry. I'm aware of possible comments I might receive, to which I'll simply say this. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. That being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're a fan of the magical girl genre and still haven't heard of Winx, my million-dollar question is, under what rock have you lived under this whole time? I will still do the recap, but I'm just genuinely curious. Winx Club is a show from early 2000s that features 6 girls, guardians of the magical dimension, who fight the dark forces of evil. The main protagonist is a ginger.
Hurrah, hurrah, the ginger's here, Papa! The ginger's here! Now make it sing, Papa! Make it sing! Make the ginger sing!
Sing, Ginger! I'm in love with the shape of
It sucks! It sucks, Papa!
Who possesses the power of light and creation, manifested as fire. She lost her kingdom when she was young, and after years and years of waiting, in actuality just 16 years, she comes back and manages to save her kingdom with the help of her friends. That's pretty much the recap in a nutshell. Take it or leave it. The show features 8 seasons, 4 one-hour specials, 3 movies, 3 spin-offs, and now, a reboot. I'm not gonna lie, the whole reboot is a mess, but what can you do? Actually, I know what I'm going to do. In this video, I'm going to do a deep dive review of the entire reboot, breaking it down into 4 parts: the story, the characters, the quality, and finally, what went wrong with the reboot and why it ended up the way it did. Cause oh boy, there's a lot to talk about. A lot! Before I'm gonna actually get into this, I just want to say something. So, I'm aware that I didn't make Winx content on this channel, like, at all up until this point, but behind the scenes, I was and I still am a huge, and I mean huge, Winx fan. This show was and will always be my childhood. I literally grew up with it, and I can't even picture my life without it. That said, I'm not here to sugarcoat it. Winx was never perfect, no matter what people are saying on the internet. It had flaws since the first season was airing, but it also had a unique charm. Something that made it fun, emotional, and memorable. I can appreciate every season for what it tried to do, even when it fumbled. But for me, the question was always this: do the good parts of a season manage to outweigh the bad? That's the mindset I'm going to try to bring into this review and into this reboot. So grab your popcorn, drinks, or whatever you desire, because this will take a while. So sit back and enjoy the ride. When you create a reboot, you have to keep some elements from the original show. The characters, the world, and the story, they need to resemble the source material at least enough so that it still feels like the same IP. Go too far off the rails, and you end up with a completely different story that just happens to share a name. The original Winx Club had its first major arc, the Domino arc, run for 3 whole seasons and 2 movies before moving on to fresh storylines, or at the very least attempted to. When Nickelodeon revived the show, they decided to condense seasons 1 and 2, which originally contained 20 hours worth of content, into just 4 TV specials. That's 2 hours and 15 minutes for season 1, and just 45 minutes for season 2. Yikes. That means the original 33 hours of story across seasons 1, 2, 3, plus the movies, got cut down to just 15 and a half. Nearly half the content gone. We complained about Nickelodeon's approach as a result, since it exchanged character development and iconic slice-of-life moments for quick plot progression that got quickly shoved aside in Nick's actual seasons. Like, come on, we all saw seasons 6 and 7. But that was over a decade ago. Maybe Rainbow has learned its lesson. So, how does the reboot handle things? Oh, just by shoving the first 3 seasons and the first movie into 26 episodes, while also introducing new characters. They try to do all of this in such a short time. Whenever I was reacting to one of these episodes, it felt like hours were running by, but in reality it was just like 20 minutes. This is how fast the story goes for, what is meant to be a reboot. We'll get into why the pacing is like this a bit later, but for now, let's focus on what we actually got. Because at the end of the day, this version of Winx was approved and released. Let's see if these 6 years were worth the wait or not. Episode 1 crams elements from multiple Season 1 episodes into just 20 minutes. Bloom drawing at her desk, triggering her powers, getting a bike for her birthday, meeting Flora and Stella during Fight with Nut. Well, a reboot variant of Nut, named, but I'm calling it like that because somebody has to. Unlocking her powers, getting dragged to Althea, meeting Musa, Aisha, Tegna, Robin, Farragonda, Griffin, Icy, Darcy, Stormy, Damien, Sky, Brandon, Timmy, Ribbon. Can you imagine the overstimulation a new viewer would feel seeing all this as their first introduction to Winx? Yes, the Nick specials were fast too, but at least they didn't throw the entire main cast at you in the first 6 minutes. The specials gave you 70 minutes before Bloom met the other Winx. Not much, but better than this. Case in point, in the original show, it took you 40 minutes to meet the core cast, that is the Winx, the Tricks, and the Specialist. In the Nickelodeon special, it's all reduced to 20 minutes, and in the reboot, in just 16 minutes. That's not pacing, that's speedrunning. Episode 2 introduces the sorting ceremony, where students are sorted as fairies or witches depending on their magic. And let me just say, this episode still butchers the witches. In the original show, the distinction was nuanced. Fairies used positive emotions to fuel their magic, while witches would tap into negative emotions. But as someone level-headed would soon realize, negative emotions do not equal evil instantly. In fact, Season 2 even had the Winx study at Cloud Tower for a while, where they managed to learn how to channel their dark emotions. That's why Cloud Tower exists in the first place. Witches aren't evil by default, they're just another type of magical being whose goal should be keeping the magical dimension in balance and defend it for harm. For fuck's sake, why did we have the Tree of Life in the second movie exist in the first place, if not for this reason? Griffin herself should be proof that witches are not inherently evil. But in the reboot, of course Stella is coming out swinging with the witches are bad, fairies are good speech. What a way to undermine the complexity that made Winx's magical system interesting. Surely the new generation could not possibly comprehend such a concept in the first place. But no worries, cause Flora tries to soften it by saying, well, witches can be good and fairies can be bad. Probably to calm down the raging audience, but the episode pushes past that quite fast. Bloom nearly gets convinced she's a witch by the Tricks, basically episode 14 from the OG show and the second special, and her response is to leave magics because she does not belong to Althea as a witch. Although witches go there now too, so you just basically roasted the witches by doing that too, Bloom, but you go girl, give us nothing. She does return by the end of the episode to catch up on the ceremony, but instead of being, reassured by the people around her that should be loved no matter what, if she is a fairy or a witch, the response at the end is just, nope, you're definitely 100% a fairy. We all know a fairy when we see one. And of course, the sorting ceremony confirms it. Not only that, but the way it is being presented, like nobody's celebrating the other sortings, except for Bloom's. Oh, God. For a show whose slogan in the previous years was literally spread magic, not hate. I'm sorry, to me this feels like the opposite. I don't know about y'all. Episode 3 is at least acceptable. In both the reboot and the original show, it's where Bloom transforms for the first time, but the way she does it here, good lord, it's so wonky. So, in the original show, the Tricks were looking for a dragon flame prior to Bloom coming to Magix. One of Stella's family heirlooms, the Ring of Celeria, was made by the great dragon who possessed the dragon flame. The Tricks tried to get the ring because they assumed the ring had the dragon flame inside of it. After multiple failed attempts, one of them helping Bloom transform for the first time, the Tricks end up stealing it by making Stella go to a fake date, have Darcy transform herself into Stella, and try to find the ring in Stella's dormitory. The Winx do end up catching up on the act, and when they find Stella, they are forced to exchange the ring for Stella's life. Shortly afterwards, the Tricks find out that the ring does not contain the dragon flame and get furious as they essentially have to go back to square one, not yet being aware that Bloom is the one they're after. The Winx then go to Cloud Tower to find the ring, manage to get it back, and escape just in time. In the reboot, for some god-awful reason, the Tricks already know that Bloom is the one they're after and try to mess with her, I guess. They send their ogre to steal Stella's ring because in this reboot, it got changed to being just a power amplifier. That can only be used by Stella, by the way. The Winx end up going back to Cloud Tower to get the ring, run into the Tricks, Icy freezes them, Bloom burns the ice down with her flame powers, during which she had managed to transform for the first time. The issue ties down to it just being so rushed in this reboot. Like, yes, there was build-up being made to this moment, but we didn't see the downtime as a result of the rush plot. Way less build-up, way less impact. Episode 4 just makes me mad. The Winx have to take an exam which they prepare for during the whole episode. But during the exam, the Tricks manage to sabotage Bloom and Flora by taking away their prize and changing it with one of the new guys, Damien, whom they must save. They do end up saving him. However, Griselda fails them because they did not get the trophy that the Tricks stole. So according to the Vice President Alafia, yes, Griselda is the Vice President in the reboot, trying to acquire a stupid trophy is more important than someone else's life. Okay, sure. Griselda in the original show was never like this, by the way. She was strict, but she was never forceful when it comes to, like, the rules. She was making exceptions when it came to, you know, situations like this. But in the reboot, she is just this one-time, one-dimensional character who's like, no, you didn't respect the rules, so therefore failed. They do end up being passed by Farragonda, and the Winx are allowed to leave, so the episode just, you know, ends like that. However, since I'm a very salty person, I will not let the episode end, and I will also mention how the Tricks, specifically Icy and Stormy, did not get their trophy as they were busy messing up with the Winx, but, you know, despite this, they still end up passing. How wonderful. That's going to be a recurring theme too, by the way. Episode 5 is just stupid. The Winx go to Magix. Oh, wait, sorry. Let me actually correct. Magixia in secret, because they don't have an assignment finished. And they try to have a day off before Damien and the Tricks attack the Winx with a monster. I assume Rainbow tried to reference the battle in Magix from episode 9, but it didn't feel entirely like it, but I think that's what they were going for. The girls try to protect the citizens and get the monster to leave the populated area before Farragonda and Griffin arrive to stop the monster. Then Farragonda removes the girls' powers as punishment, like she did in episode 6, for not informing them of the monster and asking for help as a result. Like they had time to do that! I still found the reason for Farragonda taking the girls' powers in the original show stupid. Like, you know, instead of figuring out what the Tricks wanted to do with Stella's ring that allegedly contained a dragon flame, you punish the Winx for going over to Cloud Tower to get the ring back. Okay, sure, Jan, sure. Episode 6 is my favorite episode of the reboot for making the rest of the Winx, i.e. Shamus and Tekna, act like characters instead of plot devices. Yay! The plot is meant to reference episode 4, the Black Mud Swamp Trip, where the Winx go into the woods and try to camp. We get some great interactions here, especially with Musa and Tekna. Look, this whole thing just feels so refreshing after the rush of the previous episodes. Like, an entire episode where the girls are having a downtime to relax and just enjoy themselves gives me life. And the best part, the girls managed to fend off the Tricks without even using magic. Like Stella using mirror to blind the witches, Bloom dumping water on Icy so her own magic backfires. Genius. I'm just happy for how nice this episode was and how engaged I felt with the plot, at least this time. And then episode 7 happened. So, in this episode, Damien lures Bloom into his little creepy barn, where she gets corrupted into Dark Bloom. Yup, Dark Bloom, who didn't even appear in the original until Season 2, Episode 19. She is here in Episode 7 of Season 1 of the reboot. Dark Bloom tries to mess with the Winx, who try to help her snap out of whatever control she is under, and Bloom ends up releasing the Great Dragon for the first time. This reveal is cool and refreshing, since the Great Dragon did not appear in the reboot at all until this point. In the original show and the next specials, Bloom summoned it when she got attacked by Nut in the first episode, but in the reboot we had this. Yeah. Still, this big reveal does not seem to create a massive impact on whoever had the chance to see it. Like, the Winx do not get, let's say, trauma from seeing a little beast trying to kill all of them, and it being summoned by someone they thought they knew. Like, they don't go, oh my god, our best friend just turned into a monster that nearly killed us. Especially when Musa was about to be blasted by Bloom. None of this, no. The reset button got pressed, and all of a sudden Bloom is fine. Sure, and we also move on with our lives. Vergonda finds out in this episode about the Dragon Flame, but does not take initiative yet to find out who was the one behind Bloom's strange possession. Which, yes, you acknowledge it, but at the same time, you don't do anything. Yeah, sure. Thanks, I hate it. Next episode. Episode 8 is a weird mix. It's supposed to be the reboot's take on Musa's concert from Season 2, Episode 15. And honestly, I think they did it better here. The concert setup feels smaller and more realistic compared to the giant stage and fan spectacle from the original show, although that one was iconic too. However, during the performance, Bloom gets attacked by the true bad of the reboot, this wannabe edgelord called Vexius. Yeah, I don't know how to take him. I assumed up until this point, Vexius is the reboot's equivalent of Darkheart because of how he works from the shadows and stuff, but unlike Darkheart, who at least seemed threatening and looked dangerous, Vexius is a choice. He tries to steal the flame from Bloom, but is unsuccessful since in the reboot, the Dragon Flame cannot be stolen, only granted by the OG user. So, yeah, you had your chance with Dark Bloom, and you just fumbled hard. I didn't mention Vexius at all up until this point because he is just so disconnected from the main plot. Like, he doesn't have a personal beef with the Winx like the other villains have. It's just with Bloom specifically, which I find beyond stupid. Darkheart had feud with Bloom, Aisha, and maybe even Stella for suing the Pixies. What is Vexius supposed to have with the other Winx? Episode 9 is just disappointing. The episode is a mashup of Season 9, Episode 10 and 16, plus the end of Special 1. The Winx face their fears in a simulator exam, and I will leave some parts from this episode in the character section because I think that's a more suitable place for discussion regarding those topics. But I will only mention here 2 elements from the episode that I found intriguing. The first problem is Bloom's fear taking place on Domino. How? Like, she was sent to Earth as a baby, so how can she possibly remember Domino, let alone his destroyed version? In the original, the simulator used Domino randomly because Bloom chose to restore a better environment. That made sense. Here it doesn't. Second problem is Damien's fear. So we learned that he's afraid of disappointing his father, Vexius. And just like how the other students originally had trouble facing their fears, Damien also breaks down. So the approach of the reboot is having the Winx literally jumping into his exam to fight his fear for him. Like, what? The whole point of the exam is to face your fear yourself. Why is someone else allowed to do the work for you? By that logic, anyone could pass with a cheat buddy. This could have been fixed if the Winx managed to push the virtual version of Vexius back and then have Damien build the courage to stand up to his father. But doing that would require effort, which I haven't seen done in the reboot except in only very few sections. Episode 10 is just hilariously bad. It's basically the reboot's redo of Stella's fake date storyline from Season 1, Episode 5. You know, the one where she gets captured in exchange for the Ring of Solaria. The writers must have realized they skipped over that plot point in Episode 3, so they decided to try again 7 episodes later. Thank you, writers, you still underdelivered. Stella decides to go on a date with Prince Look, who is this social media influencer, in order to try to avoid dating Brandon. More on that in the character section. She goes to the date in Magixia at this very scary club, where it turns out Prince Look was actually Darcy, trying to get Bloom's flame in exchange for Stella. She tells Stella the whole plan before the Tricks get attacked by the rest of the Winx and run away. Then there is a party and everyone lives happily ever after. Excuse me? Stella, you are just lore-bombed with a huge intel on what the Tricks are up to, and you don't even think for a second to inform anyone on this? Like Farragonda, the Winx, or heck, Bloom herself? You know, the girl who almost lost her powers 2 episodes ago? One can say this conversation could have happened behind the scenes, to which I say, here's my counter-argument. Why not see this conversation on the screen? Like, this is something we should definitely see. Instead of the useless parties that they are just obsessed with doing while also displaying their terrible animation. How Fargonda takes this? How does Bloom take this? How will she feel after finding out that she's targeted by so many people because of her power specifically? No? None of that? Okay. But I will give them credit for doing something, very sarcastically. Like, they do give Bloom information on her powers. Like, Fargonda telling Bloom that she has the Dragon Flame and then escorting her out. Look, when I asked for a talk with Bloom regarding her situation, I didn't mean lore dump her like this. I meant having Stella or any other character reveal that Bloom is in danger, but not disclose why until at least the second half of the reboot. Like, the deal with this piece of information was that in the original show, Faragana suspected that Bloom has the Dragon Flame, but chose to let Bloom discover her powers herself since, to quote Faraganda, the search for truth is more important than the truth itself. If I told you earlier, you wouldn't have been able to understand. It made Bloom's discovery more impactful and also helped to reveal that Bloom found out all of this through the Tricks, who then stole her powers so they can take over magics. Here the reveal is just so weak. Like, I cannot feel like this is as important as it should have been, as it once was. And the Winx also did not help with them saying how the Dragon Flame will protect Bloom from evil and how her powers can only be used for good. Sure, Technom, sure, whatever you say. As long as you're happy, whatever. Episode 11 is explosive, but in a bad way. It matches together Season 1, Episode 20, and Season 2, Episode 10. The Winx go to Red Fountain, and so does the Tricks, who distract the specialists, so Vexus can roll in and destroy Red Fountain, using the Dragon Flame. He manages to send Salad into the Omega Dimension and wipe the floor with the Winx until Farragonda, Griffin, and Whiskas arrive and force Vexus to leave. Okay, let's start with the first issue. So it turns out that Damien also has a Dragon Flame, which he is able to hand over to Vexius throughout the whole transfer deal. So, if Vexius already had access to the flame through Damien, why was he chasing Bloom this whole time? He could have conquered the magic dimension already and yet decided not to until Bloom came into the picture. It's like wanting to get 2 PS5s for some reason. Is he dumb? Why have the whole deal with the Tricks? TLDR, get the flame for me and I will give you my stuff to open the Omega portal for whatever playground you want to set up if you already have what you're looking for. Second issue. So, in this episode, Griffin finds out that the Tricks are working with Vexius, you know, a genocidal maniac.
Let's ask him later.
And instead of expelling them, she just lets it slide. Ma'am, what are you doing? No tracking, no nothing, just a warning and that's it?
The dumbest motherfuckers. The dumbest motherfuckers!
Episode 12 and 13 are treated as two-parters of the mid-season finale, so I'll take them as one episode overall. At the end of episode 11, Bloom goes back to the destroyed Red Fountain where she hears a voice, the voice of a young girl, who later I came to realize belonged to Daphne. Thanks, I hate it. She sends Bloom to the Light Rock Fortress, which I originally thought was Light Rock Monastery, you know, the temple where the Tricks got sent to rehab at the end of Season 1. But apparently Light Rock Fortress is the name of the library located in Domino, where the Winx go to in the first movie. Fantastic. This time the library is not located on a predatory animal, but instead it's in the sky, from where a pair of stairs will lower themselves to you, as if heaven is falling from the sky. Yeah, we don't talk about the animation yet. Bloom goes inside where she is greeted by Bartleby, originally the scribe and the keeper of Book of Fate. Oh, so we are mixing the seasons with the first movie. How great. Except this time, Bartleby is not a spirit that is bound to the Book of Fate. Here he is an AI because technology. He proceeds to info dump Domino's history, including its destruction, despite supposedly only knowing what was programmed into him. So, who programmed Domino's destruction into the library's AI? Who's flying out to a dead planet just to update its archive software? Bloom starts looking for Daphne when Bartleby decides to test Bloom to see if she is worthy to go to Daphne's pond. Apparently the test is not limited to just Bloom, and everyone who wants to see more of the library have to partake the test. Like, imagine a bystander wanting to check out the library in its entirety, and this AI goes on to test your capabilities. Bloom does end up passing the test, obviously, and goes on to meet with Daphne, And one thing that I noticed is that the pond she emerged from in the reboot is still in the library, but the design of it matches the one from movie 2, which was inside the castle of Domino. Love the consistency.
Yay, consistency.
Daphne goes on to tell Bloom that when she was born, she happened to have a twin brother named Damien. Okay, so this has been an issue since the original show, which could have been fixed here, but still, how can Bloom's name be the same on Domino and Earth? Like, she was born on Domino, got sent to Earth, where she was found by Mike and Vanessa, who later named the child Bloom. How can Bloom also be named Bloom on Domino? Shortly afterwards, Damien and Vexius arrive and obliterate Daphne in just a couple of seconds. This equivalent of a goddess ended up being murdered in the next 3 seconds once the big bats show up. Thank you. Fortunately, the rest of the Winx arrive just in time, and together they face Vexius and Damien. The girls go a few rooms away and then settle for a therapy session where Bloom dumps the plot on her friends. The girls conclude that they need to go to the Hall of Spells to find a spell that can return the flame from Vexius back to Damien. Said Hall of Spells features over 1,000 bubbles that look identical and play audiobooks when touched. It will probably take centuries until— oh look, she found it. The Winx then go outside to battle with Vexius and Damien when Bloom all of a sudden transforms into another fairy form, this time with the great dragon surrounding her. She then battles Vexius, buying enough time for the rest of the Winx to go and use the spell they learned to return the dragon flame back to Damien. Defeated, Vexius then leaves with his son, and the Winx return to Althea. There, they promise to save Damien from his abusive stepfather. The episode then ends, and for me, it just ends on a very strange note. Like, it almost gives off finale vibes, despite only having 13 out of the 26 episodes out. It's true that in previous seasons, we also had these strange endings midway through them, like Season 5 had the Winx earn Sirenix followed by a few months worth of hiatus before the Pillars plot point started. Season 6 had the girls find Eldora before the Legendarium plot started. Season 7 had the girls bomb their fairy animals before going to the mini-world. But this time, it did seem like a finale. There are rumors that the reboot got greenlit 52 episodes, so we will probably get Season 2 regardless of the reception. But with how fast all of this went by, it makes me wonder how true that is. World of Winx had 2 seasons technically, but the total of episodes was 26. We essentially just got 1 season split in 2. Are they gonna do the same thing here, where we will have 2 seasons theoretically, but only 26 episodes in total? If so, get ready for a Chantix the next couple of episodes, that should be fun. Another huge problem with this story is the pacing. It's just so messy, especially in the first 2 episodes, where the writers just combine multiple season 1 episodes in an attempt to grab you by the nostalgia's throat going, "Oh, don't you remember this plot from the OG show? Don't you like it being remade in the new animation?" The storytelling stays rushed, and there's almost no downtime for the characters to just exist. Everything just happens because the plot demands it, not because it flows naturally. Kids might not notice or care, and honestly that's fine. I grew up thinking Season 6 was peak Winx, only to realize later how flawed it was. But for anyone paying attention, the reboot feels like a half-baked remix of the original. It's flashy, it's fast, and it misses a lot of the emotional beats that made the OG special. Alright, let's start with Bloom. Her story kicks off pretty much the same way as it did in the original. She discovers her powers, then runs into the ogre in the park, meets Stella, and since then her life has never been the same. But since this is a reboot, the reboot managed to tweak her backstory just a bit. Now she apparently discovered her magic before the events from episode 1, something that we've also seen happening in Faith the Winx Saga, and she's way more supportive of her parents' attempt to make her happy. Case in point, the birthday bike. In the original show, the birthday bike was meant to symbolize Bloom's desire to be free and to be able to discover more about who she is outside of her parents' control. That's why in the original show, she wanted a moped, i.e. a scooter, but her parents thought that that would be too dangerous, so instead they resorted to a bike. And this made Bloom sad because she was like, my parents will never understand what I'm going through. In the reboot, she just accepts it. It's a cute moment, but it basically makes Bloom just so, I don't know, generic in some instance. Then the ogre shows up in the park, and Flora and Stella are shown to fight him out in the open for literally anyone to see, and that's when Bloom's bike gets smashed. In the original show, Stella was fighting the ogre deep into the forest, away from everyone to see, and the reason Bloom was able to even find Stella to begin with was because Kiko led Bloom towards Stella because Kiko saw the attack happening deep into the forest. That's when Bloom does her iconic Season 1 first magic pose, except here it looks goofy. In the original, she used it defensively against the ghouls, but in the reboot, she just does it. The ogre wasn't even attacking her, and this is one of those instances where I think that the early trailer animation did it better, because Bloom's emotions in that instance felt real. We didn't understand the context for why Bloom was like, ha! But at least we understood with the context of the first episode why was Bloom mad to begin with. And in that case, we could see that she was angry because her bike was destroyed. Then the very next day, she's off to Althea, and her parents are totally fine with it. No hesitation, no real conversation, just, sure honey, go switch schools to a boarding school in whatever location it may be, along with these two random strangers you saw in the forest and whatever. Super realistic. There are traces of Fate the Winx Saga in this conversation too, like Bloom telling her parents that she's going to a boarding school when in reality she's going into the magic dimension. And I don't hate that, because Fate was technically part of Winx's IP, so it's normal to see elements from that show maybe being used in some way into the other new Winx IPs we will end up getting into the future. However, it feels like lack of context just makes it feel rushed. Vanessa in this reboot feels more to me like the OG Vanessa, who was open to the idea of magic and she was supportive and grounded. And I don't buy it, her being as unsupportive as her Fate version made her look, which is why Bloom was, hiding her identity to begin with. Once she goes to Althea, Bloom feels even more off. I noticed this multiple times, but she's weirdly generic. Gone is the impulsive, reckless Bloom, the one with no filter, snarky commentary, and cinnamon roll charm. Burkett's Bloom was basically a human firecracker. She was fun, a little chaotic, and super entertaining. But this Bloom, she feels to me like she has to be perfect all the time, like she's already a role model instead of a flawed teenager who just discovered the magic dimension literally yesterday. She reminds me a lot of the later seasons Bloom when she was accidentally portrayed as a Mary Sue, which we criticized multiple times and we asked lots of times for the original Bloom to be brought back because, come on, let's be realistic about what we want here. Do we really want the Mary Sue Bloom who cries over a bed because Sky and Diasporo have, had a little exchange in the courtroom? Really? There are flashes of personality I liked though. Such cute moments include episode 6 where she beats Icy without magic. Again, that's such an iconic moment. I cannot for the life of me explain why. I just love it. Episode 8 when she refuses to be left alone with Vexius because again, say your boundaries girl. And my favorite, episode 10 when she casually points out to Brandon that the front door to a club is actually the back door. That was actually really clever and felt like something classic Bloom would say. Like, I just love that scene, okay? Her fear in the simulator room is also a choice. Apparently her biggest fear is harming her friends by accident since her magic is, destructive. And it makes sense given how powerful she's been shown to be. But the animation, it makes it feel laughable. Like, girl, just don't shoot your friends. Aim at the villains. Easy fix. I'm pretty sure the storyboards made the scene look more impactful than we ended up receiving. So I'll give them credit for potential that just didn't land. On the positive side, I do love that she taps into her powers more and gets a level up transformation as a result. Her outfit actually looks really cool, and I like it more than her original reboot form. I said what I said. It feels like a bridge between Magic Winx and Enchantix to me, and maybe this is a reboot's version of an evolved Charmix instead of just, having a pin and a purse. And I'm hoping that might stick around instead of being forgotten after one season. It's a big improvement here, and I'm begging, if this is not just a Bloom exclusive form, that we also see the other girls having this evolved Charmix, as I like to call it. Now let's talk about Stella, because she is an interesting case. In the reboot, she's mostly presented as a fashion diva who struggles to relate to others. Basically Nickelodeon era Stella, which Oof, you just lost a couple of points there. That version of her was a hit or miss. Sometimes she felt like original Stella, but most of the time she was reduced to bad fashion gags and comic relief. It's like the writers didn't know what to do exactly with Stella because they were trying to go for a stereotypical route with her, of her being, the stereotypical blonde girl who's obsessed with fashion and, is there for comic relief. But there were also times when they tried to tie Stella to her darker side and have her be more mature and more responsible. So it just felt like two sides that were clashing each other. This Stella avoids the fashion jokes, thank God, but she still feels off. It's like an imposter standing in for the real Stella because original Stella was fashion obsessed and a diva, but she was also blunt, caring, loyal to her friends, the type who would support you emotionally and blast your enemies into dust without hesitation. This reboot Stella shows at most 10% of what the original Stella was capable of. The only time I really rooted for her was when the show leaned into her insecurity in the simulator room. She does not want to disappoint her parents, especially with the ongoing divorce, which isn't really talked about entirely into the reboot, but it's highly implied that her parents are fighting each other and there's a massive conflict going on, which may lead to the divorce happening. So she tries to date royalty instead of Brandon, commoner, to try to please her parents. That's why she goes after Prince Luke, and when that fails, she ends up opening to Brandon, and they share a genuinely sweet moment. But things get messy when you do realize that things are more messed up than you think, because they made Radius a misogynistic. In the simulator room, Stella's fear is being disowned by her father, who apparently would rather have a son instead of a daughter. Excuse me, what? Radius was never misogynistic. He was egocentric, he was having the ego of the size of a son, but he was caring to his daughter and loved her to death. The only time when he was against her daughter was in season 3, when he was charmed by Valtor's spell. And when Stella broke the spell, he ended up being remorseful and hugging her daughter. You could argue that this could all just be exaggerated by Stella's own mind, but even for her to think that way would imply Radius has shown misogynistic views before. And then the nightmare escalates. Stella's shown alone into a fog trying to cast solar flare with her scepter, supposedly pointed at herself. The spell fails, and she starts crying hysterically. Now, I don't know about you, but I got massive Persona 3 vibes, and Pomni from the Amazing Digital Circus in episode 6 when she had the gun in her hands. Solar Flare was shown multiple times to be a spell used to harm Stella's enemies. What was she planning to do with it on herself? That scene felt like a straight up metaphor for something that's just dark even for the original show's standards. Original Stella's struggles were emotional and relatable, but they were woven naturally into her character. You could see that Stella was, afraid of bringing up certain issues and certain problems of her character, but she was trying to sway them off and pretend like they were non-existent. And this is why when I saw her interactions with the Winx, especially in season 2, it felt so natural and so relatable. This reboot just flips her from a goofy diva to having a huge mental breakdown with no transition. Whether it's a bad writing or just a rushed script, it's still rough, so that's why I called it out. Then we have Flora, which honestly, she just exists. She's definitely pushed more into the spotlight here, probably to sell the Bloom Stella Flora main trio thing that Rainbow's been pushing for years. In the original show, Aisha eventually ended up taking Flora's spot in the trio as a result of her rise in popularity and her best writing character in season 2. But in the reboot, they're clearly trying to put Flora front and center. Her personality, thankfully, is pretty much intact. She's still the caring, motherly type, especially protective of Bloom. Shocker. And of course, she still loves plants. Sometimes to a fault, because her simulator fear? What in the absolute doggery is this? I cannot even recognize what it's meant to represent. Is it climate change? Nature dying? Like that's your greatest fear? Something you can't control? Something that will happen regardless of you? It doesn't work like that. Her fear should have been something more personal, maybe seeing her friends hurt, not being strong enough to help those around her, or maybe disappointing her parents. Something that ties back to her character. I'm begging you. On the plus side, she does try to build a friendship with Damien. It's one-sided at first, since he doesn't care about her at all, but she's determined to reach out. In the original, her dynamic with Helia was based on mutual kindness and compassion. So going from that to this is a choice. If they really wanted to make Flora shine, they could have shown her being more determined, more assertive in her goals. But when you make her fear climate change, you're just undercutting her motivations. Aisha also exists, but in this case, it's a massive problem. Since the reboot pushes Bloom, Stella, and Flora to the front, Aisha with Musa and Tekna end up getting shoved into the background. Again, why not have all of them in front and center since this show is meant to have 6 protagonists, not 1 or 3? That will never understand. Aisha gets introduced as a sporty type, which that alone is a crime in itself. Sport was never her main character trait. In the original, she used dancing and outdoor activities as a way to express herself, a rebellion against her isolated, rigid upbringing. It wasn't about being sportsy, it was about freedom. The reboot kind of revisits this theme, but in the worst possible way. Instead of clashing perspectives with her parents that still came from a place of love, Aisha's parents here are written as classist. Excuse me, what? Theodore and Niobe were never portrayed this way. Yes, they were strict and rigid, they arranged the marriage between Aisha and Abu, but they immediately realized they were wrong and supported the relationship once Aisha and Abu admitted that they have fallen in love with each other. They learned and grew. The reboot does the opposite. There's a scene where Aisha's parents literally demand her to address them as Your Majesty to their own daughter, like she's a peasant. Excuse me? Then the Shima specialist for dancing later revealed to be Lord Pontiff's son, saying it's humiliating for someone of noble birth to act like a common entertainer. Aisha tries to push back, saying people should express themselves, but her father shuts her down. And instead of Aisha standing up for herself, like she would in the original most likely, Bloom and Fargonda do the talking for her. Bloom is the one knocking sense into Aisha's parents. It robs Aisha of her own agency. Imagine how much better it would have been if she finally snapped by the end of the episode, told her parents they don't even know who she truly is, and stood her ground. Literally, what Connie Maheshwaran did to her mother in Steven Universe when she snapped and did the talking. Steven was there, but as an emotional support mostly, not as a guy who tried to budge himself into the conversation. I mean, he did, but his mother shut him down, saying that you don't know my daughter, but then Connie snapped, so, you know. But still, it was Connie and her mother. This time it should have been Aisha and her parents, not Bloom and Aisha's parents. Theodore and Naomi would end up recognizing her sincerity, hug her, and leave with pride, knowing their daughter will become a badass queen in the future. That would have felt earned. And her simulator fear later on is basically the same issue of her parents, which, why? We just did this thing 2 episodes ago. Is she still worried because other people have solved this issue for her? Is it because of the trauma from all of the years where she lived in that lifestyle remaining stuck? Give us something, anything. But no worries, because the reboot brushes it past quickly. She faces her fear in that same episode. Compare that to original Aisha, whose fear was being left all alone, a reflection of her isolated childhood, which took her multiple episodes to overcome. That was way more personal, and it felt earned when she finally moved past it. Why not bring that back instead of, changing characters to being classicists for some god-awful reason? That was pretty much it for Winx members who have been ruined for the sake of plot in the reboot. Now we're going on to the other Winx members who have been given justice, finally, after 100 years. Musa, thankfully, is one of these instances. She finally has a personality. She gets nice moments, and best of all, she has a healthy boyfriend. Thank you, Lord. Her introduction is a little rough because of how fast it goes by. She quickly presents herself as the fairy of music while making beats at her desk. Bloom acknowledges it and then moves on to her life like nothing is happening. Musa fades into the background for the next couple of episodes, but things pick up in episode 5 when she goes to Magixia alone and sings with a street performer who I think is blind? It's a small moment, but it's really Musa-coded. Like, her connecting with people on a spiritual level through music is a great way to show how empathetic she truly is. In the next episode, she shares a song she wrote with the Winx, again, perfect use of magic as her emotional outlet, and then in episode 8, we learn her dream is to pursue a music career, not just for herself, but to help her father, who is struggling financially. That's a nice change from the original, because original Musa's conflict was about honoring her late mother, and that clashing with her dad's belief that music would destroy Musa too. The reboot's take, in my opinion, was more grounded, showing the struggles of musicians trying to support their families in times of need. It just feels fresh, while honoring in some way the original storyline. And then there's Riven. Somehow, the reboot fixes him. Thank you, Lord, again. He's still cold and edgy, but toned down to the point where he's actually likable. He still struggles to express himself verbally, so he ends up learning Musa's song in secret and playing it for her on stage when she gets stage fright. That moment was wholesome, the kind of dynamic Musa and Riven should have had from day one. So yeah, credit where it's due. Reboot Musa is a win. Tekna also gets some justice, though maybe not as much as Musa. Still, appreciated. Since this is a reboot, they of course reset her back to struggling with emotions. In the original, she was blunt to a fault, and in some instances, had a hard time reading the room and emphasizing. But over time, she learned to express happiness, sadness, and also trust her friends more. The reboot, however, manages to take a different route. Tekna here is more introverted, shy, and closed off. In my opinion, this ends up working. Episode 6 gives us this adorable Bloom and Tekna scene. Tekna isolates herself, gaming on her phone, instead of hanging out with others. Bloom notices it, reaches out, and encourages her to join them. She promises that the Winx will accept her for who she is, and Tekna, in a small but meaningful gesture, moves her hair out of her face and goes with her. It's a subtle gesture, but it shows trust. And it was really cute. Her simulator fear is that no one will acknowledge her efforts to emphasize, and they'll just see her emotionless like a machine. Good idea, but a clunky execution. Later on, when the Winx enter the simulator, while Tekna stays outside trying to shut it down, the simulator still manages to show her fear, which, in this instance, makes no sense. Isn't the simulator supposed to scan whoever's inside and then show them their fear? Can it also do that for those who are outside as well? An easy fix would have been having Tekna enter the simulator, be the one who faces her fears first, then escape using her tech magic, and then help shut down the simulator from the outside. That would have highlighted her desire to stick with the Winx, show to the other girls what they have to do to, defeat their fears, while also showing Tekna's independence as well. Even with that hiccup, in my opinion, Reboot Tekna still works. She's shy, insecure, but still growing into her emotions, and I just wish we had more build-up with Timmy. There are hints, but nothing major yet. Alright, so these were the Winx. Now we're going on to the other characters, which all of them were butchered in one way or another. Next up, we have the Tricks. I'm covering them as a collective because, well, that's just how the reboot wants you to view them, so that's how I will do it as well. We've got Icy, Darcy, and Stormy working as Vexius' sidekicks, just like how they did in Season 2 for Lord Darkar. Vexius promises them his staff so they can access the Omega Dimension and summon an army in exchange for Bloom's Dragon Flame. The Tricks, however, immediately suspect betrayal and decide to go, nah, let's pretend we follow him and steal Bloom's Dragon Flame for ourselves. Now, people complained that the reboot portrays them mostly as bullies, and my take on it is this. They were like this in the original show too. They started off as your stereotypical mean girls, before evolving into full-blown, power-hungry maniacs. The real issue is that they have been dumbed down. By a lot. In the original, they were petty, but they were still threatening. In the reboot, they're so comically bad it's hilarious. To give off an example, there's a scene where Icy and Stormy find Darcy being happy, which apparently is not allowed in the witch's world. Darcy admits she's in love, and the sisters point out her crush on Riven, complete with a full-on shrine she's built to him. What in the miraculous ladybug hell is this? And the best part, that subplot goes absolutely nowhere. It's just dropped immediately. Wow, Darcy really gave up on him fast, huh? Darcy really just got dumbed down the hardest, by the way. She literally ends up telling Stella their entire secret plan when she tricks Stella to come at the club. Like, hello? You're already plotting behind your boss's back, and now you're telling your plan to your enemies? The manipulator of the Tricks right here, ladies and gentlemen. Peak evil mastermind right here. At this point, they feel less like villains and more like obstacles for the Winx to face, which is a huge downgrade, considering they're supposed to be the Winx's main threats. They're supposed to be the nemesis of the Winx. But I'll give credit where it's due. The reboot churned up Icy's lesbianism energy by 1,000. The obsession she has with Bloom, the vibes between her and Dark Bloom, I was gagged. OG Icy hated Dark Bloom and saw her as nothing more than a tool to acquire relics, but here, there was tension. Was it intentional? Of course not. But am I still going to read it as enemies to lovers fanfic fuel? You know I will. You know I will. Now, On to Damien and Vexius, who I'll cover together because I'll just treat them as a collective. Vexius is positioned as the big bad of the reboot, once King Oratel's right-hand man, forever living in his shadow, now out to claim the dragon flame for himself. Generic, but understandable. I actually like the idea of someone from within Domino staging a coup. It makes sense. Like, no kingdom contains citizens who will always be fine with the way their planet is being governed. Someone is always going to want to seize the power for themselves. And then there's Damien. Bloom's is his twin. Is it weird? Yes. Out of nowhere? Definitely. But hey, reboots are supposed to introduce also fresh ideas instead of just being carbon copies of the original show, and I don't mind if it's done well. Extra points if these new characters could slot into the original story without delaying it. Damien is clearly the reboot's version of Valtor, even down to the whole warlock thing, to which a quick note, Fergana says Damien is inherently evil because he has even a drop of darkness in him. Which is dumb. By that logic, every single character in this franchise is doomed. The bigger issue is the father-son dynamic between these two. The show tries to make their relationship toxic, with Damien wanting to make his dad proud, only to constantly be told he's a disappointment. Which could work, except the pacing kills it. For like 8 episodes, Vexius is nothing but cruel and dismissive. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, he decides to train Damien to strengthen his dragon flame. This would have been so much better if the events were flipped. Start with the two being super close, then show the relationship deteriorate as power ends up corrupting Vexius. That way, Damien's eventual conflict would feel earned and not as rushed. And don't even get me started on Vexius' strategy. He constantly has the tricks and Damien do the dirty work for him because he can't reveal himself, but then randomly decides to do so in episode 7 when the tricks have their powers taken by Griffin, with Vexius even having a "finally, my time to shine" moment. Like, bro, where was this energy earlier? Everyone at Althea already took a century to realize you're the villain. You could have gone wild ages ago. As for Damien's relationship with the Winx, it's rough. He's forbidden from interacting with them, yet constantly puts himself in situations where he would, of course, end up interacting with them. His crush on Flora comes out of nowhere with zero build-up, and honestly, his dynamic with Bloom had way more chemistry than the one between Damien and Flora. For God's sake, and these two are twins. But still, I'll give credit to two things. The reboot introduces male fairies, although they're so dumbed down and they're so treated badly. And also give credits to Damien's innocent reaction to the idea of him being a fairy. It's adorable and straight up childhood wish fulfillment vibes. I love that. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The biggest, most infuriating character from the reboot, in my opinion. It's Sky. So, in the original show, the writers accidentally made him look like a cheating coward. There was still a lot of discourse about this on the internet, to which I will simply say this. I understand that Sky essentially was in an arranged marriage, and he didn't love Diosporo the way she loved him. However, he could have objected to this. He could have told Diosporo that he loves someone else. He could have told Bloom that he's engaged. I don't care about the whole switch identity shtick, because in the Nickelodeon version, Sky retains his identity, yet he still does not tell Bloom about Diosporo. But instead, he chose to be a coward and keep it down until the two girlfriends meet each other and had an all-out fight. The reboot could have fixed this by making him accountable, honest, and showing that breakups don't have to end in melodrama. But instead, they made him worse. Reboot Sky is introduced in episode 1 as his friendly charming guide to Bloom. Then episode 2 drops Diosporo, established right away as Sky's girlfriend. So Bloom knows this piece of information from advance, acknowledges it as well as her other friends, and her friends encourage her to go for it, literally saying, "Yeah, he's taken, but shoot your shot anyway." Excuse me? That's the message children should get from your show? If only they could make me root for Sky and Bloom, maybe I'll let it slide. But they don't, because Sky is an absolute piece of shit. When Bloom turns into Dark Bloom and messes with the students in the hallway, Diosporo calls her out on her behavior, saying she's kinda rude. Dark Bloom responds to this by splashing mud on her face, which prompts Sky to call out Bloom too, and she throws some weak insult about him being his mother's perfect boy. And somehow this devastates him. Like, really? That's all it takes to shatter your ego? And then he ghosts her for Lord knows how long. We don't know the time periods between episodes or even in episodes specifically. But during this time period, Bloom texts him rapidly, desperate to make amends, and he straight up ignores her messages. That is until Stella uses Bloom's phone to text him about helping set up Musa's concert. And that's when he replies instantly. Not a good look, my guy. Shortly afterwards, when the Winx are helping Musa with setting the stage up for the show, the specialists arrive. All of them, but Sky, who is busy taking Gasper out for boba tea. Gnarly. Okay, so the man is not even daring to mention that he cannot come and that he has other plans, which, okay, fantastic. That phone is useless. Further into the episode, when the concert officially starts, he is shown in the crowd with Diaspero cheering on Musa as she sings. Nothing wrong with this until you take into account that just behind the stage, Bloom is getting abducted by Vexius and nearly has her powers stolen from her. This alerts her friends and everyone, the Winx, the Specialist, Farragon, the Griffin, rush to save Bloom when Vexius attacks. Everyone except Sky. Explosions are going off behind the stage, which made people mumble to themselves on what could be happening behind the scenes, and Sky just sits there in the crowd, like a dumb NPC. Then after the concert is over, he strolls up to Bloom like, "Wow, great show." If I were Bloom, I'd slap him hard in the face. He eventually breaks up with Diaspero a couple episodes later because he hadn't texted her during a fight. The writing is so sloppy, oh my god. And now Sky is conveniently single for Bloom, so the two of them could end up together. But at this point, I don't want her anywhere near him. She deserves better, and literally anyone will be better for her, but this reboot's version of Sky. It blows my mind that they managed to make him more insufferable than the original. He's supposed to be the main male lead, and yet the reboot portrays him as a selfish, flaky, and utterly unlikable person. It's not intentional, I could totally tell that, but still, they tanked his character hard. The reason for all the small changes to events and stories is actually pretty simple. In Rainbow's attempts to kidify the show and appeal to a younger audience, since only children watch the cartoons nowadays, screw all these cartoons, for some reason, they hired queer-phobe and misogynistic writer Eugene Sun to work on the reboot. You know, the guy that turned Andromeda Shawn from Sanseiya into a woman because people need a girl boss as a role model, with the show receiving huge backlash as a result of this. The guy is only present in episode 7 since his credits, but that alone is enough for me to know that Rainbow did work with such a guy in the first place. He was involved in some way in the reboot's production, and it's possible that more people like him have partaken in the reboot's production that happen to share Sans' views and values. Suddenly, the dislike against male fairies, especially in the reboot, makes much more sense. Suddenly, the misogyny that got cast over Radius was given more context. This is yet another show that got in the hands of someone who used it to justify their political views, just like how other shows have fallen from grace for the exact same reason. What is an American like this doing, writing a show for an audience where a chunk of the fan base consists of LGBT people that originally had literal gay men design the clothes for the girls in the original seasons, with those designs getting lots of praise from people due to their diversity and uniqueness in detail. And this isn't just a one-off example, by the way. The whole list of writers are now Americans. The series Bible was made by Americans. Where is the made in Italy pride that made the original show iconic? When I refer to the quality of the reboot, my view moves away from the story and the characters associated with any type of media and goes towards the production side. How's the animation, the effects, the music, the voice acting? You can't have a strong script, but when making a show meant to air on TV, these elements will be your hit or miss. I will start with the music first and go towards the other aspects later on as well. The music plays a large part in Winx's identity, and I think you can enjoy these songs without having to be a fan of the show itself. In my opinion, the music is one of the best elements of the reboot, and one of the factors that motivated me to watch the reboot for its entire run down until episode 13. Since this is a reboot, a good idea Rainbow had was to remake the original intro song of the show under the sign of Winx. And I gotta say, I actually think it's a solid one. It's iconic, enjoyable, and overall a great recreation. The composition feels a bit different, but that makes it more nostalgic to me. I've seen people dislike Clara Socini's vocals, but I feel like that's just because we're not used to her yet, just like we had to adjust when the original show switched singers from Lucia Michiniri to Yasemin Sarino in season 2. A different singer can completely change the vibe of a song. Remember how the season 5 intro was treated when 2 versions came out, sung by 2 different singers? Superpower is my second favorite song from the reboot, and part of that is because it's exactly the type of music I listen to in my free time. It doesn't fully sound like a Winx song, but it has its own charm, and I vibe with it. The instrumental is strong, and the effects layered over Clara's voice are so cool. They make her sound powerful and really match the energy of the Winx at the beginning of the show. It almost feels like the baby version of Fly by Elisa Rosselli, a great way to show how energetic the songs could be at the start of a journey, as they represent the Winx being in their freshman years as they gradually get older and their beat turning into slower, more mature songs. Winx Forever is a bop, generic, but a bop nonetheless. Virginia Bocelli might be the youngest singer we've ever had for Winx Club. She's only 13, born in 2012, the same year season 5 came out. So yes, her vocals might not be everyone's cup of tea, but honestly, cut her some slack. My biggest grip isn't with her necessarily, but with how much the song was overused in the reboot's promotional trailers. Hearing the same instrumental on repeat got so tiring, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who thinks this. The instrumental though, it's fire. Reminds me a lot of Sirenix, probably because it's similar to Shine and Glow from Mermaid Magic, which was in the same key as the Sirenix song. And the Italian version is pretty good too. It seems like Virginia's vocals got more enhanced in this version. Subtle upgrade, but appreciated. But I gotta agree with the others. Why does she sing Noi Winx Forever in the Italian version? It should have been Noi Winx per sempre from the get-go. Like, come on, Rainbow, have a bit more respect in your hometown, please. You don't see Siamo le Winx go, Siamo girls are the Winx. Speaking of Virginia, let's also talk about Magic. It's yet another pretty generic track, but still listenable. Virginia sounds way more mature in the song, which is a massive upgrade. Virginia sounds way more mature on this song, which is a massive upgrade, and the instrumental is fire. It's not really different from the other pop-style Winx songs we had in previous seasons, that I vibe to as well, by the way, but it's not something I would actively search for. If it pops up in my shuffle, I'll just let it play. From now on, it's probably one of my most favorite outros ever, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. Maybe it's the stage I'm at in my life, but this song speaks to me. I love the message about becoming stronger and blooming, clearly a reference to Bloom's journey as a fairy at the start of the series. And Virginia's vocals are so enhanced here. She sounds more powerful and emotional than she ever did in her other songs. And the visuals for the outro, chef's kiss. The reboot Winx with the outlines of the original designs in the background is probably one of the best nostalgic callbacks they have ever done. If the nostalgia in the show could have been this subtle, I think it would have landed better. Personally, I loved it. But my favorite song from the whole reboot, and maybe even from the whole show, is Step Into the Dark. I'm sorry, but the tricks have converted me. I'll happily be a warlock if it means this song plays every time I walk into a goddamn room. The vibe is just so cool. It gives huge K-pop energy. It sounds similar to Blackpink's Boom Baya, which, intentional or not, it's a slay.
No, you wanna be cool like this. Into the darkness. Ain't a bad girl, I know I am. And I'm so hot, I need a fan. Dancing in the shadows. Step into the dark. Boom, baya.
And somehow, they made the track sound better than Winx Forever. And I'm here for it. Ellie, you've got yourself a new fan for this song. Congratulations. Now, originally, Elisa Rosselli was not called to sing songs for the reboot, but after a while, she did seem to get the call, but I feel like she was given the short end of the stick for some reason. Her songs are good, but compared to how fire her songs were in the previous medias, here they're just lacking? I can't fully tell why. Like, Going Home has a beautiful instrumental, but depressive and repetitive compared to her older songs. Wings of Courage is nostalgic, with a beautiful instrumental, but sadly it's only played once, so... Emotional is pretty depressive and slow, and I think too heavy for what technically should be considered Season 1 of the new Winx. I think they should have introduced this song later in the reboot, should the reboot get more seasons, if possible. The lyrics are deep, but too soon for Musa and Ribbons' story at this stage. Like, the song talks about clearly deep signs of love, but these two have just met each other. The song requires you to know their history from the original show, which is a nice callback, but this ain't one-to-one a song sang in season 5, which was a soft reboot, and had the previous seasons to back it up with the development. Like a Butterfly somehow is even more depressive than Going Home, but I find it very powerful, probably because I'm a sucker for You Made Me a Woman and Only a Girl. It is my third favorite track from the reboot, though it is, again, only played once, and I find it too soon to be in the reboot as well. Like, if it was added a bit later, I think I would have enjoyed it even more. Still, Elisa's vocals slay, and she delivers with what she was given, and I deeply appreciate her for it. Oh, and I forgot to talk about Winx Universe. That's also a good song, but a bit generic. Still, Elisa's vocals save the song, and it's good, it's empowering, and matches with the vibes of a Season 1 reboot. But it cannot be saved from the fact that it just sounds similar to other generic Winx songs we've heard in other seasons. So yeah, that's its only issue. With that being said, let's slowly shift our attention to something I'm sure y'all are just waiting for me to talk about. The biggest elephant in the room. The animation. This isn't even an unpopular opinion anymore. For me and for a lot of people I've seen online, the animation hands down is the worst part of the reboot. The animation is rough. Characters often look stiff, they move in uncanny ways, or they fall as if they are underwater. There are moments where characters do things that make no sense at all, like technotyping at the end of episode 9 or spells moving at a snail's pace. These aren't small nitpicks either. There are problems that feel that they could have been fixed with a little more time, and the fact that you see these errors time and time and time again, they just keep stacking and you can't just ignore it, because after a while you'll just get tired to see these errors happening in front of you. Overall, the animation looks unfinished and unpolished, and it's like watching a beta version of a show before the final details have been added. Transformations and certain key scenes have a lot of these issues too. Some of them managed to get patched last minute, like Bloom's skirt and Musa's eyelashes in the trailer, but those fixes weren't enough to save the reboot from how it ended up looking. I'll dive deeper into this in the final section of the video, but for now, to put it simply, Rainbow decided to go with the classic good, fast, cheap production triangle where you can only pick 2 of these options, never all 3. And we all know which combination they picked here. Because of that choice, the only way I could sit through the reboot was thanks to the music, the voice acting, and by matching the expressions and emotions the 2D concepts or maybe even the storyboards would have conveyed, but which got lost in the 3D models. Sure, 2D animation has its flaws, but it will always be more expressive than 3D. A lot of the scenes we see in the reboot are a bit wonky and a bit goofy, but if you had the opportunity to check the storyboards and see the shots and the animations, you'll understand how impactful the scenes were actually meant to be. It's just they got lost in translation and the scenes ended up underperforming as a result of this. I'm not even going to go into how this reboot was on such a low budget. They literally reused assets from their other show, Mermaid Magic. Look, I understand that this isn't a stock asset and Rainbow can use them whenever they want to because they made it, but when you reuse an asset from an older project and you somehow manage to make it look worse than it did in its first appearance, that's just bad. Not to mention how they literally had such a low number of character models. They ended up reusing character models multiple times, even in places they shouldn't have been. The only saving grace of the animation, fortunately, is the special effects. And by that I mean the special effects of the magic. The effects on the spells and transformations look pretty good, sometimes even beautiful. The way magic is visualized in the reboot is kind of how I always pictured it in real life. But even here, there are cracks. Ferragon does his spell, Musa's tear in episode 9, it just looks rough and unfinished. Still, compared to everything else, the effects are the one thing holding the animation together. Or at the very least try. The reason for why the animation is like this is actually very simple. Despite what Rainbow wants you to think, the show is no longer made in Italy like it once was. Instead, Rainbow reached out to Alkit Xiamen Cultural Service, which is a low-budget Chinese company that was pushed to make the reboot in a very short time frame. More on that later. Next on our list are the designs of the characters, which in certain aspects can be hit or miss. Some of them are genuinely cute. For example, I really like Flora and Technus's looks. They feel fresh and have a specific charm to them. But then you've got Bloom, Stella, and Musa's civilian outfits, and I'm sorry, but excuse me, Aisha exists, I suppose. The one thing I genuinely enjoy regarding the designs are the rock outfits. They are so detailed and actually look like something humans would wear. They all look great. Questionable towards Second and Stella, but still amazing outfits. Also, I'm just gonna drop right here that Dark Bloom's outfit is such a top tier outfit. I am obsessed with this look. This outfit, if possible, should have been recolored and maybe end up being Bloom's main outfit in the original show. I would prefer it so much, and it looks so good. I would love it. I would personally love it. Now, for the transformation outfits, I'm kinda torn. I like Musa and Flora's designs. Stella's, it's acceptable, and I don't like Aisha, Bloom, and Technus's designs. Musa's outfit is very similar to her Magic Wings look, which is why I enjoy it so much. Even though it's a reboot, the first forms should feel simple and true to the characters. Plus, I love her piano wings, come fight me. Flora's look also echoes her Magic Wing style. If they just remove those random flowers on her outfit, I'd be completely happy. Her hair is styled nicely, and her wings are made to mimic petals, and they're just so gorgeous. God! Stella's transformation is rough. Her wings are a massive downgrade in my opinion. Her hair isn't styled that well, and it looks like an attempt to recreate her original bangs, but it just looks messy. Even her outfit, for some reason, just doesn't work for me as it did for the others. It feels like it tries to mimic the outfits Blackpink wore in the Pink Venom MV, and those designs just don't scream Winx at all. Aisha's design worked better before, and her previous hairstyle also looked better and natural. Sorry, not sorry. Bloom's outfit looks so unfinished. A lot of people have pointed out the weird half sleeve thing, and I agree with them. It's just not working. Personally, I prefer her 2022 design because it was simple and effective. And even within the reboot itself, like I mentioned, I like her second transformation outfit way more. It's simple, elegant, and overall an upgrade. Also, I'm one of those people who thinks Bloom looks amazing in purple, so seeing it as a primary color for one of her other forms, I love it. Techna's design is the one that I dislike the most. I don't know about you, and honestly, I don't care what people are gonna say to me because you can come fight me if you want to. I personally love her Magic Wings design. Now, Techna was not my #1 favorite wings as a kid, but I was still appreciating the idea of having a more futuristic fairy on the show, because the idea of having a fairy that has a hand glider as a pair of wings, literally wears a costume to display the futurism and the way that she looks like a soldier, was just perfection. The cone and the silhouette stood out the most. Right now, Techna looks like she's wearing a bathing suit, worse than she did ever even in Sirenix, and Sirenix was also just a bathing suit technically, a one-piece swimming suit, but still. And let me just say that this suit does not scream technology to me. Like, if the outfit itself had more technological patterns, maybe I would have liked it more. But honestly, the only way you could understand that Techna is the fairy of technology is just because of the wings. There were these censored images that were going around, I think before the time that the reboot was out, and they featured the girls in censored outfits, akin to how they would have also censored outfits in their season 1 variants and maybe other versions of Winx. But this time, this was fake. This was a fan-made version, and this is why I didn't even talk about it up until now. But let me just tell you, the fact that a fan-made version of Techna's suit manages to outlook this much the original costume just says everything that I need to know. Just tells everything you need to know about this design. Next up, we have the Tricks. Now, I think they have the best upgrade and the biggest glow up out of all the characters we have seen so far. They genuinely look like their old selves, and somehow they managed to translate their uniqueness and their charm so well into this new art style. I personally love the way Icy looks, It's clear without any shadow of a doubt that she got the biggest budget out of all the three of them. But I also like Darcy and Stormy's designs. I find the chain Stormy's wearing a bit odd because now she has a gold chain. Previously, she would have a pink chain, or at least a pink sign with like her initial. Now it's gold, which I understand why. It's supposed to be the ice, silver, and the gold type of thing, or bronze. But I still find the design a bit weird because it's clashing too much with her reddish costume. Vexius looks interesting, pretty generic. He looks pretty generic, and for some reason his model in certain aspects looks so unfinished compared to other character models. His hair is a bit weird. I will never understand what is his hairstyle from the back. It looks like the back is shaved, but the front isn't. It's such a weird hairstyle, and I'm not gonna get into details too much about this. It just looks a bit weird. I don't know. His costume is also generic. It's basically just a generic goth costume as type of outfit. He looks like it's like he's supposed to mimic a vampire, but he's not. It's just really confusing. Damien looks the most out of the place in the reboot. His character model does not look like it fits with Winx. It fits with any other show, not Winx. I was initially confused about why I was finding it so weird. I don't know about you, but his character model matches a character from possibly Mia and Me, which is another Rainbow show, and I think he would just fit there more. Then we have the specialists, which I'm going to talk about each of them just a bit because I don't want to get too much into detail about all of them. So Raven looks fine. Again, he suffers the same treatment as Vexius with the shaved back, but the front isn't. So again, it's like that weird type of hairstyle. I just will never understand it. Brandon, in certain shots, looks like the cartoon version of James Charles. Other times, and other shots, he looks so good, and I can't help but wonder if the animation team managed to update his design, but they didn't update the shots with the new model in the early episodes. So now you just have these two models, because in the first episode he does look a bit different and from how he does in episode 10, for example. It's just it's just 100% to me looks like a different design and a different character model that they just didn't go back to update, because I'm assuming it would have like costed them more money. Next up we have Timmy, which he looks very dorky and very goofy, which I understand because Timmy was always portrayed as the smart guy of the specialist team. However, he was also very athletic. He had a pretty good muscular build, like he was pretty muscular. Now he looks just like a regular slim guy, and it's just so weird. Maybe this is like a choice the reboot wants to take. Maybe he'll become more buff as the show progresses, but I don't know. But I'll take that in mind if that happens. If it doesn't, it's still pointed out. Next character, we have Farragonda. Oh boy. So, Farragonda, I'm gonna say this again in the next section too. She looks like a character who would appear in the mentioned mobile games. She looks very goofy. She also for some reason doesn't fit into the Winx show, the reboot. It's just so out of place, and I don't know. I don't understand what they tried to do with her. Now that I'm looking more at other images of Farragonda, I'm noticing that I think they tried to do a modernized look of how she did from season 6 onwards, or the movie variant. And just saying, I think it would have been better if they would have went with the seasons 1 through 5 look, because that, in my opinion, is more reassuring, comforting. She looks like a fairy godmother to Bloom. She does not look like this in the reboot. She just looks like a Merge Mansion character. Next up we have Griselda, which, oh boy, she got chopped badly. Her design in seasons 1 through 7 was, you know, a choice too, but here she just looked like she got robbed. Like, her design looks like, she looks like a skeleton who was added skin and flesh, and those glasses are just not it either. Like, I don't know things about glasses, but I don't like the fact that the upper frame is reddish pink and the down part is this turquoise thing. It would have been better if it was just like full on turquoise like it was in the original show, and just leave it like that. Like, I don't understand this choice. Then we have Griffin, which for the longest time I didn't understand what was off with her. Now I have a couple of her images side to side, and I think I'm noticing why. I think it's because her skin is pink. And in the entire previous seasons, Griffin's skin was always green. Why did they make her pink? Genuine question. I mean, I'm suspecting why they made her pink, but again, we're gonna talk about this in the next section. But could they really just not have, like, you know, her green skin and just, you know, make it more acknowledgeable? Because the only thing that you can do to recognize that this is Griffin is her hair. I understand that characters in reboots can look different from how they do in their original media or their original show. However, you have the Winx looking pretty much the same as they did in the original show. You have the specialists looking pretty much like they did in the original show. You have even Farragonda, who, yes, I commented about her, but she still looks pretty much similar to the original show. You can recognize her. With Griffin, it's a bit complicated because her design is just so different that if you don't know that this is Griffin, you're just gonna be confused. You're gonna be like, who's this new character? But yeah, this is pretty much it. Also, the other character designs, because there's lots of character designs that are, you know, have to be talked about. I don't know what to say about them. Like, it's still gonna be this pretty much the same thing. I don't like, for example, Diosperus's look. She looks like a Bratz doll. Robin's look is generic. I don't have anything to say about her, to be honest. Another huge point I want to mention when making this reboot, although the models look rough, especially from the distance, they have strangely managed to put a lot of work into their texture, especially on their faces. Like, their faces have so much detail when zoomed in close, it's insane. It reminds me of how Tritenis' 3D model in Season 5 was so detailed. Like, when zoomed in, you could see the texture and how high quality it was. While the Winx in that season just had a mask on their face. Here, you can see the details, and it's a shame we can only see them when they're zoomed in very close to their face, because it shows you that these models have some work put into them. It's just the overall build up to them is like a bit rough. Last but not least, let's talk about the voice acting. Now, I don't really have an issue with the actors themselves. Most of the problems I noticed come from the voice direction they were given, how they were instructed to portray the characters, and the script being something as well.
Tomorrow is the big day, and we're gonna rock that test to Andros and back. Now's my chance to return the favor. So, did that sound as cringe-tastic in your head as it did out loud? You're not getting away, Vexius.
I am the Dark Lord. I am not afraid of a tween.
Still, the voice actors still managed to work with their script and managed to make good quality content, at least on their end. Kate Bristol as Bloom was a surprise. If you didn't know, Kate actually voiced Musa in Season 7 of the original show and in Season 1 of World of Winx, where she had a soft, pleasant voice that worked really well for Musa. But Bloom has always sounded a bit more impulsive to me, like a mix of Molly Quinn and Lisa Jacqueline. It does seem like Kate's doing her best to match Bloom's energy, and I appreciate that. Most of the time, it works. Kate is doing her best. Love it. Sonia Werner as Flora was quite a nice change. I don't think we've ever had a Flora voice that sounded so distinctly Hispanic before. My only grip is that sometimes it feels like Sonia was asked to lean into her accent more in some takes than in others. This makes Flora sound more Hispanic in certain episodes, but much less in others. It's similar to how Flora's Cinnalum voice actress, Holly Gautier Frankel, suddenly started doing a higher pitched tone in Season 4 for no reason. Probably because of the direction of the voice that Cinnalum wanted to go with regarding Flora. Courtney Shaw as Stella is probably my most favorite version of Stella we've gotten so far. I already accepted that we will never have a Stella like Cinnalum's dub again, but if this is Aeginos' version of Stella's sound and personality, I'll take Reboot Stella any day. She's like a fusion between Nickelodeon's Stella and Cinnalum's Stella. Not too serious, not too airheaded, and definitely not as obnoxious as the Nick version. Again, thank you for removing the obnoxious fashion gags. No shit on Amy, love her, but I wanna murder Stella from Season 6 so bad in my closet. Jenny Chan as Musa threw me off at first. When I heard Musa, she sounded a bit awkward, but now I suspect that's more about the script and direction than Jenny herself. She sometimes seems to be forcing a tomboyish tone and it doesn't land. I have to be honest, I like Sarah Bird as Tekna. I get what they were going for. They wanted Tekna sounding more robotic at first and gradually more human as the show progresses. And I find Sarah's performance in episode 9 stellar, and I'm obsessed with her line in episode 3.
Whoa, that's so cool! I've been told to say thank you after a compliment, so thank you.
And Zuri Washington as Aisha? Yes, just yes. I love how confident Aisha sounds because of Zuri's performance, and she also nails the emotional moments too. The main issue with Aisha isn't her voice, it's the animation. Because of the limited facial expressions the character models have, they end up undercutting Zuri's work. But Zuri herself is spectacular. I have a feeling that they took inspiration from Headmistress Dowling, aka Fate's Farragonda, when they casted Abby Horton as Farragonda, and I like it. It helps make Farragonda sound wise and intelligent, which could be why Tegna was British in Forky's dub as well. Like, you know, make her the smarter one by being British.
31.2% in that suitcase and 29.78% in there.
Cheryl Collins, miscredited as Cheryl in the credits, kill me, voices Griffin in the reboot, and her performance, I am in love. She sounds tough, but understanding, exactly how I always imagined Griffin, and I'm here for it. Mark Thompson as Vexius was a nice addition. I can't help but feel that he was directed to sound like Heath Silverstein's Hawkmoth, which, okay, a little generic, but he's working with what he's got. And fun fact, after finishing the reboot, I found out Mark also played Casey Jones in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I watched that show as a kid and didn't pick up on that. That's voice range. Jamie McGonigal as Damien is also amazing. These actors have such good voices that sometimes I can't ignore, thank God, the awful animation and motivate myself to mentally reanimate the scenes myself in my head. That's just how good these voices are. One more thing I want to credit the reboot for is the reintroduction of Latin spells. As the show became more Americanized over the years, the Latin spells started disappearing. Seeing them return was a neat detail that longtime fans asked for, and I'm so glad it's back. So, now that we've talked about the reboot from every angle possible, we're left with a question we've all been asking ourselves. Why? Why did the reboot end up the way it did? To answer that, let's go back on a little journey into the development of the series and how it ended up the way it did. It will be a bumpy ride, so get ready. Before I'll dive into this section and start talking about what this part has to unfold, I just want to give a couple of shoutouts and a couple of thank yous to these amazing people who have supported and have helped me with information and have given me a more clear context on what has happened with this reboot as a whole. Huge thank you to Mikey Odell and Ashton Silverstone on Instagram, and Beben Leke, also known as Los Menos, on Twitter for his amazing thread and his amazing help with support. They are amazing people, go support them. Without them, this video was not possible, and once again, thank you very much. And without further ado, let us begin. In order to understand why the reboot fell flat, we need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture, the history of Winx Club, and how we even got here to begin with. The original show was designed to tell an overarching story across 78 episodes and 2 movies. These were the Domino arc, and that was Eiji Nostrafis' vision from the very start. And in the early 2000s, Winx Club's success was quite significant. It was a #1 hit across multiple countries in Europe, and thanks to 4Kids, also managed to snag a whole new audience in the United States as well. To quote Eiji Nostrafi, "It all started from a great passion. With all that success, Straffi decided to keep the show going with new original stories, although clearly not as fleshed out as the original Domino arc. On paper, the ideas for the new seasons sounded amazing, letting the Winx grow up into adulthood, tackling family drama, exploring childhood trauma. These are genuinely powerful directions. The main issue, as always, was the execution. Straffi himself admitted that by season 5, he made a decision to change the target demographic to a younger audience. Once again, to quote, "Nowadays, it's very difficult to get a 10-year-old to watch cartoons. They all go for the live action. When your target is 4 to 8, your story cannot have the same level of complexity as the beginning seasons of the Winx. The fans of the original Winx Club say on social media that the new seasons are childish, but they don't know that we had to do that. And to that I say, who told you that? When the Nickelodeon deal was going around, I was part of the demographic the show was targeted towards, and back then, I grew up watching Steven Universe, Adventure Time, and plenty of other cartoons that were kind of complex. And I also watched other shows that were live action too, such as iCarly, Victorious, to some extent Sam and Cat, and I love these shows. And it wasn't just me, Kate ate that stuff up too. But I didn't love them because they were specifically live action oriented or because of the fact that they were just cartoons. I loved these shows because they didn't have to dumb themselves down too much and avoid talking about deeper issues. They tackled stuff with a mature mindset, knowing that kids, even if they don't understand stuff at the moment, they will eventually understand it as they get older. Right now, I'm watching shows that I grew up with, and I'm understanding more and more the complexity of the characters. Because back then, I was just watching cartoons, and I was like, oh yeah, sparkly outfits, oh yeah, action scenes, oh yeah, characters being happy and genuine and super happy. But now I'm seeing more facades of these characters, and this is something that I love about these cartoons. And Winx, not really. I'm curious to see what statistics Eugenio looked at when he saw that cartoons are watched the most by children. Yes, they are the main target most of the time, but Winx came out around the time the Powerpuff Girls were becoming quite popular, and they had a whole fan base that consisted of adults. They could have gone the mature route and fleshed the characters even more. They have proven this with season 4 and their fake out at how the girls are going to become mature and live on their own in Gardenia and, you know, tackle their own dreams and ambitions. But we all know the reason why they didn't choose that was because they wanted to make cheap storylines that later get blamed on the children and their taste. Oh, that and merch. Otherwise, you wouldn't have made Sky asking Bloom to marry him twice on the screen. One time in the first movie and the second time in the second movie. Like, why make that choice in the first place? Why didn't you fully commit to Bloom this arc as the princess of a newly restored kingdom? Or let Aisha and Stella actually deal with what it means to rule their specific kingdoms instead of locking them as crown princesses? These were storylines just begging to be explored, and instead, they got brushed aside, only to be brought up here and there to pretend consistency is still a thing. Consistency my ass. And here's another kicker. Strophy admitted himself that he stepped back from Winx entirely around this time to focus on other projects. Once again, to quote, "Let's just say I've moved on to other projects." This I can understand. Sometimes creators do move on with their lives and they focus on other aspects of their life. But at the same time, this show is the flagship series of Rainbow. You approved the creation of new seasons, so therefore you want more content out, and you acknowledge that Winx is the breadwinner of Rainbow, yet step away right when the series could have needed direction the most, especially with its upcoming changes. Also, Strophy's commentary, although it looks like a retirement statement, like, I moved on to other things, he didn't retire from the animation industry and stay focused on personal achievements and stuff. He's still making cartoons, he just stopped focusing on Winx specifically. No offense, but can't you multitask? Can't you try to work on 2 shows at once? You cannot focus both on Winx and Huntic, Secrets and Seekers? The result of these decisions became obvious. With a shift to a younger demographic and the loss of Strophy as well as the original writers, the show kind of lost its complexity. Longtime fans began to drop off because Winx just wasn't speaking to them anymore. And that's a natural response as people grow up, and by the 2010s, the show was now made for a new demographic. But here's the twist Rainbow didn't expect. New viewers weren't going to watch the show too much either. Since the Nickelodeon era was afloat thanks to already existing content, newer fans of the show at the time, mainly children, didn't want to go back to the origins to get the history of the Winx by the time season 5 was coming out. Nickelodeon burned for the original show. What originally was 6 years worth of time and effort put into a show, Nickelodeon presented it in literally 1 year so they can start with their revival side of the show, which was expected was way too fast. So kids would have a hard time watching the original 4 seasons or the movies. Heck, there were instances where apparently season 3 and season 4 episodes were being released during the time kids were still in school, but Nickelodeon was still doing this because they had to pump out their content. So of course when kids would come and see season 5, they would be like, wait, there's already an established timeline, there's already an existing universe, there's already, like, you know, elements that are existing already, so how can we catch up on this? oh, we're supposed to watch other 4 seasons, other 2 movies behind this so we can understand what we're seeing on TV right now? Hell no, I'm going back to my other shows. As a result, Rainbow ended up with this fractured audience, and their idea of what fans wanted got more and more out of touch with reality. Meanwhile, we learned Strophy's attention during his whole mess was on what would become Gladiators of Rome, and that movie is infamous. Written by Michael J. Wilson, the guy behind Shark Tale and Ice Age 2, the movie had a budget of $55 million, and when it came out in 2012, it flopped. It flopped hard. It only made $10 million back. That's a $45 million loss for Rainbow, a company who, despite getting praise over creating one of the most memorable cartoons in Europe at the time, didn't exactly have Disney-level safety nets. And that one failure costed them dearly. They couldn't afford the original Hollywood voice actors anymore, couldn't keep up the flashy 3D CGI segments presented in seasons 5 and 6, and had to move dubbing to Duarte, the company who voiced season 7 of Winx and the first season of World of Winx. Duarte would eventually split into current Duarte and Freevee, the latter becoming Rainbow Six's choice for dubbing season 2 of World of Winx, season 8 of the original show, and the reboot for Winx Club. In the meantime, Rainbow kept on trying to kidify the show in an attempt to appeal to a younger audience, and also to generate easier conflicts, all while the quality of the overall show decreasing. This can be seen by season 8's release, which had a pretty solid animation, but the designs were just... yes. Think of Winx Club as a show that skyrocketed in the early 2000s, and ever since then kept on declining further and further, sometimes slower, other times faster. They were still selling merch here and there, but it was not enough to cover the expenses of their past actions. Rainbow was burning money, basically, but in some instances they were burning it faster, other times slower. This is my suspicion, but I think this is why World of Winx got cancelled in the first place. I genuinely think they could no longer afford the couture style that the show was recognized for. Netflix didn't seem to be involved in the show's cancellation, at least this time, and the show did seem to have built a solid fan base too. But despite this, the show ended after 2 seasons, actually one, but you know, with a massive cliffhanger, and then radio silence. I highly doubt the company that made the original story have a finish, the first 2 movies, would actually go out of their way to make a story that ends the way World of Winx did, intentionally. Now, Netflix was still interested in the Winx brand, so in 2018, they started developing what would soon become Fate the Winx Saga. However, despite trying to cater to the grown-up audience of Winx, the live-action series would completely miss out on what made the original show special. Sure, season 1 pulled in views, but that was mostly curiosity factor. After the whitewashing, fat-shaming, homophobic undertones, and the overall edgy tone, season 2 just failed to gain views, and ended up being deemed a flop compared to how much traction the original Winx was getting in its golden days, and getting cancelled by Netflix because the production was deemed too costly. In an interview that was released shortly after Fate came out, and you know, curiosity factor was still around, Ijino said how thankful he is that people have stuck with Winx for 17 years at a time, which is ironic when you realize that in reality an MV managed to do what this live action couldn't. And not to mention how, by that point, it was the fan base that was keeping Winx alive, not the actual people working on it. By this point, Winx lost its magic. Rainbow forgot that the heart of the show was never just sparkly transformations or surface-level friendship speeches. Instead, we were looking for powerful and mature messages the show could convey while maturing the characters and making them grow along with their audience. In an attempt to try to reignite the flame that made our childhood so much brighter, they simply tried to mimic it while reducing their overarching story to a cheap cash grab. Sorry not sorry. And they haven't learned this lesson in the next 10 years either. Baiting fans that the next season will be mature and will have great elements that will satisfy the old fanbase was just evil at that point. Tricking nostalgic-driven fans to come and see the show by saying, "Look, we will be more mature, just look at this trailer, how fire it is," while showing this instead season was a punch in the gut. Hell, they did a whole 15th reason to watch Winx Season 8 shtick back in March and April of 2019, to convince veterans of Winx to come back. To me personally, it felt cheap, depressing, and not motivating. I don't know about y'all, but this is how I feel, and I'm somebody who started Winx with like freaking season 1 on DVD. To be honest, I didn't watch season 8 until the reboot came out. The art style and the animation of the reboot just made me watch season 8, okay? Like, it convinced me. It finally made me to do that. After season 8 wrapped up in 2019, Rainbow almost immediately jumped into production on season 9. It was officially announced in 2020 at the Russian Licensing Online Summit, and originally it wasn't going to be a full reboot, but more of a soft reboot, kind of like what Rainbow tried with season 5 and 8. But the big change was going to be the format. Instead of the usual 26 episodes, they planned for 52 episodes, each 13 minutes long. Promotion was pretty much non-existent, and all we got was the working title Winx Club Shorts and a poster of the girls chilling in casual outfits. No concrete visuals at the time. Instead, we were told what Rainbow Six's plan for the franchise was going to be from here on out. Season 9, just like the previous seasons, would still be aimed at preschoolers, ages 3 to 7, while Fate the Winx Saga would end up covering the older fan demographic. Pretty much a win-win from both sides, and also more content for the franchise. In 2024, surprisingly, we did end up getting a leak from the scrap season 9. Said leak showed off promo art of the girls in what looked like their season 9 fairy forms, and honestly, they slapped. The designs felt like an evolution of Cosmics while also introducing a fresh art style. I am obsessed with how Nusa, Aisha, and Tekna look. The other girls look acceptable, but still better than what we ended up getting. Season 9 was initially set for a 2021-2022 release, but Fate had other plans. By late 2021, new redesigns of Bloom, Stella, and Flora started circulating online. These hinted at the project possibly shifting from a soft reboot to a full reboot. The designs themselves look great, and my favorite transformation that we have seen from the reboot's production. Bloom is rocking the shorts, Stella looks awesome with her skirt, Flora has braids and a heart tiara. It all screamed modernized Charmix. Fans, myself included, were slowly getting hyped at how the reboot could handle the OG story in a fresh new format. But then Fate got cancelled, so Rainbow changed directions. Ijino officially announced that there will be a reboot coming soon, and a live-action Winx movie with a $100 million budget. Sir, no offense, you fumbled hard with a $55 million movie in 2012 and you think you could do better with $100 million one? Call me impressed if that's the case. Also, do you have the funds to do that in the first place? Wasn't your company cutting corners just a few years ago? You have money now, bitch? Instead of releasing season 9 when it was intended, they delayed it to 2024, aligning with Winx Club's 20th anniversary, and went back to the drawing board. The format switched back to the traditional 26 episodes at 24 minutes each. Around 2023, teasers dropped showing the Winx in more Fate-inspired outfits, plus a wild preview of Bloom's as Dragon fighting Ogron's as the Dark Dragon. That preview still sparks life in me, and I'm in love with how cool as hell the teaser is. The designs, however, were hit or miss. Personally liked Tekna, Nusa, and Flora's looks, but Stella, Bloom, and Aisha, they were rough. You could tell Aisha especially looked way too much like her Fate version, and you could also tell Rainbow was malfunctioning trying to appeal to both new and old fans without understanding either of them. This got more obvious by the time Rimini Comics began, an event that took place in July of 2023. At the event, Ijino announced how there would be a 7th member joining the Winx, which a lot of people thought that it was Roxy. But 2 months later, at Milano Licensing Week, which took place in September, there was a panel that promoted Winx Club. Said panel showcased new images from the reboot. The first image, under the friendship section, presented the Winx in a new design alongside a new girl that awfully looks similar to Terra from Fate. Now, I have no problem with Terra herself, her character is actually really nice, but you would think that Rainbow would add as a possible 7th Winx fairy in the new reboot someone more familiar with the audience, say Roxy or Daphne or Murda, especially with how controversial Fate already was at the time and all. The second image, under Magic, features the Tricks and a new guy fighting the Winx. This new guy reminds me of Ogron because of his reddish hair, but my money is on him possibly being Damien from the new reboot. The design matches, and with the reboot slowly moving away from its original plot, this could seem highly likely. The Winx are fighting in their modern Charmix designs, now with Aisha being present too. I can't say much about her design since the images available are pretty blurry, but she looks like she had a very simple design too, and it looks like she was green? Huh, The third image is under high stakes, and it showcases a reworked version of the Ogron vs. Bloom poster that we saw, except possibly Damien being shown to take Ogron's place in wielding the lightning dragon against Bloom. Probably Tim, and with the reboot also going with the idea that he also possesses the dragon flame. This could be why he's shown to be against Bloom. You have the good dragon and the bad dragon, but who knows. Now, this next part is confusing, so bear with me. Apparently during this time, there were rumors regarding an intern at Rainbow suing the company for whatever reason. Said intern was the one who made the modern Charmix designs, so Rainbow decided to scrap those designs and look for alternatives. Concept design is crucial in a show's production because it establishes the visual narrative. Take it as a base around which the production of a show goes round. Enchantix was a powerful fairy form, so they made a season around the girls growing up, becoming mature, and rightfully earning the strong power. Sirenix was an underwater form, so they made a whole season going around the infinite ocean, and so on. So when Rainbow was no longer able to use the designs for the transformation in the reboot, they pretty much got stuck in the mud, as they lost one of the main pillars of support that shaped the reboot into what it could have become. As a result of this event, along with Fate being cancelled, Rainbow decided to scrap their 2 years worth of production and try to start from scratch and make a show that, according to them, would appeal to their two set target audiences. Money, time, and effort put so far into production of season 9 and the first reboot, all gone to waste. Fast forward to April 2024, where Rainbow finally officially unveiled at Napoli Comic Con the reboot for Winx Club. We got a CGI preview from Rainbow, and the animation quality shocked me. Like the hair alone, it actually has hair strands moving individually. No more plastic helmets like season 5 and 6. For a few seconds, I felt genuine hope, I really did. And we ended up getting two versions of the preview, one showcased at Comic Con and the other one from YouTube. The one Rainbow posted on YouTube looked fine, kinda stiff. Meanwhile, the version shown exclusively at Comic Con, animated by Hempa Studios, was leagues better. Expressive, lively, with that spark of Winx charm. Though yes, the Pink's bathroom stalls were a choice. Struffy would later confirm the Comic-Con style was closer to the final product, and that alone should sound reassuring, right? Like finally Rainbow knows what it's doing. Nope, days before Comic-Con, leaks revealed the reboot's production hasn't even started until a month prior to the event. Episode 1 was not even finished. And to make it even weirder, images from a third preview version started going around which looked like they were made by yet another studio. This one actually has my second favorite take on Bloom, kind of expressive, slightly awkward but fun. And to add more to the weirdness, 2 hours after the Comic-Con livestream ended, the official channel got taken down for copyright infringement. What? At Comic-Con, Struffy later bragged about the reboot being also aimed at adults who grew up with the original with a high budget and next level animation.
La stiamo riproducendo con nuove tecniche, nuovi stili appunto narrativi. È chiaro però che abbiamo sempre anche il pubblico di voi cresciuti nel cuore, nella nostra mente, e quindi nel far questa serie stiamo cercando di non essere comunque bambineschi o troppo semplici, e quindi diciamo che la nuova serie, sia come scrittura che come poi svolgimento, è abbastanza come dire interessante anche per chi non è bambino e che vuole vedersi una storia di formazione divertente, ma soprattutto con una tecnica di animazione e di fotografia veramente a livello quasi di film piuttosto che di serie televisiva, perché stiamo investendo tantissimo come budget in questo reboot, perché vogliamo che Winx, dopo tanti anni, oramai l'ultima serie animata risale al 2017, vogliamo che nel 2025, a 8 anni di distanza, abbia di nuovo le caratteristiche per sorprendere il pubblico di tutto il mondo, sia per la storia che per la qualità grafica.
He then got asked questions by people attending the event, to which he gave some strange answers like, Roxy stayed on Earth because she was needed there. No, she went to Althea, what the fuck? Bloom was expelled because of an accident. Never happened. Do you mean when she attacked the Aspro and out of shame she left Althea? Because no, she left of her own accord. That situation confirms something I started to suspect for a while, and honestly I'm just sad to see it being true. Strophy seems to have been way less hands-on with Winx than people think, than all of us think. After season 3, he looks like he started to pitch ideas, but he didn't even actually write the stories himself, which is alright. That's why Ichino had trustworthy writers who knew how to handle the story with love and care, until they got replaced by Blue Clues writers. Like, no wonder why Roxy was sidelined and the continuity just fell apart. The new writers probably didn't inform Strophy about the ways they handled his story, if we can even call it that, hence why he said stuff that made no sense. I think the stuff he mentioned were his takes on how the characters should be handled in the show, but the liberty of how they will get executed would be done by someone else, and done poorly too. The execution fucking kills me. Strophy believed Roxy stayed on Earth when actually she got sent to Althea, and then behind the walls of it for all of eternity. Basically, take Eugenio as someone who literally got disconnected from his fandom years ago, tries to reconnect, and does not understand what people want from him anymore. A couple months later, at the Rimini 20th anniversary party, we got another teaser. This one leaned hard into TikTok aesthetics, floating drawn on, cast intros, behind the scenes beats. We saw a rough animation of Flores' transformation and storyboards for the episode 4 flying scene, and one thing we noticed from this trailer were how hard they tried to alter the designs of the girls yet again after the designs we saw literally a year prior. And in some cases, they did it in such a rough way. The 2023 designs were just so much better. Yes, I shaded them, but they were better than what we had here. At least those ones didn't have Musa whitewashed. Again, the release date was now set for June 2025, and probably one of the biggest events regarding the reboot's production happened. The leaks from October 2024. Concept images, storyboards, and unfinished animations flooded Reddit, TikTok, and Twitter. I think I'm getting a bit of deja vu. I don't know about you. This is when the allegations of AI started to surface, and they were a lot. Questionable concepts, placeholder music, awkward dialogue. It all looked so bad. Unlike the April leaks, which Rainbow surprisingly let slide, probably for the free publicity, this time they went hardly nuclear. Like the alleged leaker who was from Turkey, and the same guy who leaked lots of miraculous content back when season 5 was still airing episodes, he reportedly got a visit from police. Some fans managed to buy full scripts before they disappeared, and there were phishing attacks that targeted multiple studios at the time. With the leaks from October 2024 being the main focus right now, let's talk about the main issue of the reboot. The usage of AI. First, let's clear up why AI is such a big deal so we can all be on the same page here before moving forward. Creating any form of art, whether it's drawing, music, video editing, it all takes time. Hours and hours of actual human effort go into bringing an idea to life. You end up adding all the little touches, refine details, and polish until you're proud of the product you have made. People will see the finished product, but you will forever know the effort you put into making art from nothing. That's what makes art valuable. Now, imagine you poured weeks into your project only for some random AI slop made in 2 seconds to get more praise than your actual work. You'd be pissed too, right? That's the core issue here. Companies love AI simply because it's the cheaper alternative. They don't have to pay artists or animators for what it's worth when they can just have the machine do the job for them. Like, imagine being one of these artists at Rainbow who spend time designing the designs for these characters and making so many variants of them, and then you have an AI generated version be the one who takes the cake and be the one that's approved and greenlit? Why did I spend my time on this then? Fortunately, these attempts at making content end up losing the human spark, the craft, and the soul that a machine will never be able to replicate. Do I hate season 7? Yes. Do I despise season 8? Also yes. What about Fate the Winx Saga? Don't even get me started. But you know what? For what it's worth, at least these seasons were made by humans, and I would rather sit through a human-made flop than an AI-generated slop. So, how did Rainbow use AI? Well, not exactly how people first assumed. The animation, music, and voice acting, those are still done by humans. Very rushed humans, by the way, since they only started animating in April 2024 for an October 2025 release. A little 60-month deadline, but you know, it's nothing, please. But the concept art and storyboarding process is where the AI came in. And that's a problem still, because those AI generated designs, like I mentioned, were then used as foundation for the actual 3D models. The AI creations were still translated into human work, which explains why so many characters look wrong. Rainbow was already broke, wasted money on ideas that got scrapped, and lost years of time. So the context for why they resorted to AI is there if you know where to look for it. But does it all justify the usage of it at the end of the day? Absolutely not! Rainbow dug its own grave and managed to turn its back on the legacy, the animators, and especially on the fans, who are some of the most creative people I have ever seen. What some of y'all make could literally be seen as original shows, if not for the Winx IP. Alright, so are we all on the same page? Perfect. Then let's look at some of the leaks, starting up with the specialist concepts. The first to give away to them is actually very simple. It's the backgrounds. These concepts have hyper-detailed, painterly backgrounds that make zero sense for character references. Please, these are true concept images of Winx. This is Istanbul. It feels like they had an AI trained on Winx images that are available online and asked the AI to generate character models for a possible reboot. Like, when you search Ribbon, for example, one of the main images options you will see is his Season 2 civilian attire, which features the British flag. Case in point, the AI straight up slaps a British flag onto his pants, along with a background that looks like a war zone. Part of me wants to believe it's the outside of Cloud Tower, but I know the writers forgot about that plot point, since it happened last time I checked 22 years ago, with it not returning even back during the Nickelodeon era. Timmy's concept image is rough, oh my god. The more I look at it, the more I'm getting sick. So, once again, highly detailed background for some reason, which, what is even meant to represent? I thought it could be inside of an airship, but the inside of that looks nothing like the concept image. It's like when the AI was asked to do Timmy, it recognized him being a geek, so they gave him a generic sci-fi background because that's for sure who Timmy is, right? There's also a rough reflection on his glasses that looks very badly edited, like the AI tried to mimic reflection and instead ended up giving Timmy a digital screen on one of the lenses. There's also a small hole right under his chin, which could be the AI overlooking that area when generating the image, and also the missing shoelace on his left foot. The AI also seemed to take inspiration from Timmy's design from Season 2, just like it did with Riven. Timmy looks pretty much similar to his concept version, but I think they made his face a bit softer, probably to portray him as younger. And now I think I'm realizing why they made Timmy have brown hair in the reboot. It's because the AI image portrayed him with brown hair instead of his usual ginger one. Oh god, please save me. Skies' concept is where Rainbow clearly tried to cover their tracks by removing the background of the concept images, but that still could not save Sky from the exposure. So first of all, the jacket Sky wears seems like a jacket with patterns that mirror on each side, but the patterns on its left sleeve do not match the ones from the right sleeve, which is a typical sign of AI usage. His pants have a weird coloring going around. His right side is turquoise, but the left side is blue. You can't fully tell this because of the lighting, but on the lighter part, you can tell that. And probably the biggest sign of a human not touching this concept image is the mistake on Skies' right hand. It looks like the AI had trouble generating the hand and ran into an error. We have had Winx in 3D so many times, so if this was a human-made Sky, I'm sure that detail would have been fixed by that point. Fergonda looks like she was designed for a mobile game mod, and she is the crazy granny from Winx Reboot. This is one of the reboot's biggest problems in my opinion. As a result of using AI generated images to build the character models off of, you end up with character models that just look like they don't belong in the same show. Like Fergonda has a different concept and vibe here compared to the other character designs and concepts we have seen. And another huge red flag here has to be the designs of the shoes. There's that golden thing that does not look the same on Fergonda as the shoes. Griffin also looks like an evil video game character, although she does seem to portray Griffin more than the animators did when they modeled her. There is just too much detail going on for what is a concept design that can be changed at any moment if someone is dissatisfied with something. If I would have designed that design for Griffin and the patterns and the design would have been changed, I would have thrown hands. I would have set Rainbow on fire. Coratorta looks like a remade version of the neighbor from Hello Neighbor, and I am terrified. The image is now more 2D than all the other ones, so whatever AI iteration they have decided to pick on making this design, please pick a lane already. This is getting confusing. And also, if you could, please decide on a design for Coratorta's boots. Like one is designed one way and the other is another way. And if that wasn't AI generated, that's a terrible design in general. Vexius looks unfinished. I can't tell why, but his face just looks less polished compared to the other designs. Probably the AI malfunctioning in the process. I can't even tell if this is because of the background being removed, but Vexius' hands seem to have the same problem and error as the one we have seen on Sky. And yeah, you can kind of tell there's like a pattern going on here. Damien is probably the most different one looking from his concept image to his reboot self, and you can just tell that he was literally created through an AI generated prompt. His look, vibe, and design just don't match with Winx in the slightest, and also his model does not match with his design at all. He looks like he's from a different show, but I'll give credit where it's due. The AI tried to make Damien look more masculine. The reboot made him look worse, and also another issue of these concept images, which by the way, thank you Rainbow for zooming onto his eye, is the reflections. What is it meant to reflect? Why put that much detail into a concept image that would be so unrecognized unless his design was AI generated? Also, the cropping they did for him was rough. He looks like he was generated in an image with blue and red clashing backgrounds, and he was just right there in the middle of the background. Next up, I will do a quick rundown on the background witches. I'll not go into detail about them too much because there's just not much to talk about them, but the fact that some of them look 3D while others look 2D is just so jarring. They don't even look like they belong in a fantasy show to begin with, and their faces don't match to give a similar art style. Stormy's concept image is interesting because we learn how some designs came to be. We see that in her case, images for jewelry were presented to the AI and then given the prompt to make the AI concept image. Stormy's face looks so uncanny. I'm sure it does for you too, especially if you have seen the circulating AI art from around 2023-2024. Like, it tries to imitate Stormy, but it's not Stormy. This concept image also helps explain why in Icy's design, for example, she does not have her trick symbol somewhere close to her neck, like Darcy and Stormy, and instead it's somewhere else. You have no guarantee the AI will assign the charm to where you want it to be. It will get assigned, but it will for sure be somewhere random. Last but not least, we have the ogre that attacked Bloom in the park. Do I even need to get into details about this? It has a terrible rendition of the Trixis symbol, so he must have been made in the same AI iteration where the tricks were made. Mismatched horns, horrible pants, lots of black squares in the designs, mismatched foot, horrible generated pants, missing left nipple. God, this is a mess. During the development stage, the girls have started undergoing lots of changes. From the looks of it, Rainbow does actually have these stock art models somewhere existent in their computer, which is why the characters themselves look like they were assigned a brand new wig and clothes. It's because they did in fact. From the leaks we received, there is an asset called arctest_S00_ poster transformation something, which features the Winx being naked, although with their 2023 hairstyles, and then another variant where they also have their weave snatched Lila Rossi style. Now, if they literally had the AI draw over the Winx or not, that is on its own another can of worms. But regardless, we ended up getting a new poster in the meantime, which at first may look like the final promo image we got, but in actuality, it's still the early versions of the transformations. It looks like Rainbow went back on their season 9 designs and decided to alter them so they can look more modern and flashy that way, at least according to Rainbow. This could be why Eugeno stated that the reboot designs have been made for years. He was not wrong on a surface level, but these designs do not look like these. They do in fact look worse. And fun fact, that could actually be the case, because after the reboot came out, more leaked images got spread online, which showcased the girls in their season 9 transformations, so the designs from 2019 and 2020, being reused in 2023. These concept images showcase the girls in their transformation from the front, the back, the shape of the wings, and how they're supposed to be placed in the back. Regarding this, I can't fully tell if these images are AI generated or not, but I will give my 2 cents. I find weird how the wings are being placed on the back. For Aisha, Stella, and in some case even Bloom, it looks like the wings are 2 separate wings, like they're not combined, like it is for Musa and it is for Flora. And in Technus's case, she has even this like green piece as if it is of the thing that sticks her 2 wings together. And it looks so weird, and I can't tell if this is like a design choice or maybe the AI trying to generate the wings from the back, because we don't see the back of the wings in the promo images. But I will say, what I do think is AI, and it does seem most likely as AI, is the emotion section. On each of these images, there is an emotion section on the right side of the screen. And these images, you cannot convince me these are not AI generated images. It looks like that trend, that's sadly a thing, where you have the AI generating different images on a grid and all images look similar. And it does seem like the AI was asked to generate different emotions for the characters and they got assigned in a grid. And the emotions look weird because they have that thing that I like to call a Disney-esque face. Whenever an AI generates a face, it for some reason always goes for a Disney-esque style with the face, the eyes, the expressions. They all have that exaggerated style that a lot of people try to mimic. And although Disney was the one who initiated this trend years ago, now it's starting to become more of a thing even with AI machines. And it's just so generic. And you can tell this most likely with Tekna. I'm sorry, but Tekna is the most obvious one with AI, and she's the one who confirmed it to me that this was 100% AI being used in like at least the emotions being generated, because her hair doesn't look normal. Her headpiece just, it's like, where's it coming from? It looks like a tattoo, what the heck? And also, I have to mention that we sadly have AI images of Winx already online and they all look the same, especially in terms of face structure, and it's not normal because for years this has been going on and it hasn't changed. That face shape hasn't changed, hasn't been updated, so yeah. So Bloom is largely the same, but there are different effects on her leggings. Stella still has delicate wings on her shoes. Her armband and her hairstyle are from her Season 9 design, and she also seems to summon butterflies instead of just creating light magic. Flora has her hair edited out roughly in the back, and she lacks the flowers from the top of her head. Musa has recolored boots from her Season 9 design, as well as her old hairstyle that managed to hide her eyebrows. For some reason, her touching the butterfly created a spiral effect instead of just an aura. Aisha is largely the same, she just has a different glitter effect on her wings. And lastly, Tekna's leg is behind Musa's foot in the old promo, but in the new one, it's in front of it. And she also has her headphones. Fun fact, Tekna's headphones were a last minute change. In the storyboards for her transformation, the headphones were showing up before her eye zoom, and this got changed to Tekna simply adding her implant in the final product. She also had a sequence where she equipped herself with some gloves as well as her adding her boots. Oh, and she also had some patterns on her arms, which according to Rainbow themselves, they wanted to go around the idea of Tekna being a robot in the reboot.
Tekna è sempre stata la mia favorita. All'inizio si pensava di renderla un cyborg, ma non sarebbe stata più lei.
But they quickly changed it and decided to go with Tekna being more introverted. So that's why she had those patterns in this design, but not in the finalized poster. Generally, the storyboards are very expressive and manage to convey the emotions the girls are supposed to display in certain shots. It just looks so much more superior to what we end up getting, that it's infuriating. We could have had so much more fun with the reboot if it wasn't for all the budget cuts Rainbow ended up doing to cut corners. And I may praise the storyboards right now, but part of it is because, at the very least, it is made by human beings. Can't believe we have to start praising that now. The storyboards are usually rough and give you the idea of what the scene is meant to convey. However, because of the short time left for the reboot to air, Rainbow most probably went with their first drafts of their new script and decided to greenlit those for animation. Problem with a rough storyboard and the low-budget animation studio, especially in rush circumstances, is that the animation studio will not have the time to think rationally. Certain aspects of the storyboard and animation will end up doing a one-on-one version, like copy and paste the storyboard in its slow shift from one drawing to another to the slow animation we ended up getting. Hampa Studios was most likely rushed with making the animations for the transformations, which is why their animation is superior, but they also ended up doing a one-to-one copy of the transformation sequences too. Case in point, Musa's transformation was called out on having certain frames cut out, leading to interpretation as to why that was the case. When I checked Musa's storyboard, I instantly recognized why. So the storyboards feature rough cuts between the drawings, but that is done in the hope that the animator meant to recreate the scene in whatever format it was desired can pick up on the intention, which here was Musa getting the string and playing it, not Musa getting the string, cut animation, start again but different pose like in the storyboards. The second thing I want to talk about regarding these storyboards is the usage of AI in replacing artists. Alright, this is a doozy, so buckle up. So, in the storyboards for episode 6, Musa plays Wings of Courage, which is the song sang by Elisa Rosselli in the released version of the reboot. However, In the storyboards, they had an AI version of Elisa sing the placeholder song before the actual Elisa recorded her take. Now we all know Elisa's voice, right? Powerful, elegant, and mature. Just praised it a couple minutes ago. Take a listen at her singing the prototype demo for Mythic's transformation made over a decade ago. Now take a listen to Wings of Courage.
In the magical world, hope flies high, the wings like. In the magical world, hope flies high, the wings. The way with courage and trust by your side. The way with courage and trust by your side. With valor, each part. With valor, each part. The wings, shining in the sky. The wings, shining in the sky. With wings of courage, against evil they fly. With wings of courage, against evil they fly. Every step forward, every dream. Every step forward, every dream. To chase the wings, teach us nothing is impossible. To chase the wings, teach us nothing is impossible. To face with friendship in our hearts, and to face friendship in our hearts.
One thing AI will always do is to high-pitch someone's voice to unnatural levels, because no matter how good the machine may be, it will never recognize the limits and the range the actual person has. So in some cases, like this one, the AI will sing higher than Elisa ever did and ever will, because it just mimics Elisa's voice. Apparently the way Rainbow could have done this is through Euroloid, an AI tool that can help you make your own voice bank. It's essentially more DIY than Vocaloid, and as such, its quality will depend on the quality of the recording used to start the AI voice generation. So they picked a bunch of audios of Elisa singing songs and then had the tool make an AI voice that sounds like Elisa when she sings. To add to this, I also suspect that the AI that was, trained for this had audio of Elisa singing in Italian, because in Italian, Elisa sings with a higher tone than she does in English songs. If you listen to more of her songs, you will notice this eventually, the fact that she sings way more higher in Italian than she does in English. And hence that's why her singing Winds of Courage in English with the Italian pitch is unnatural. Another example that I can give of like how this can be done is literally through the AI covers that are available on YouTube. If you go to listen to any covers of any other artist, you will notice in certain aspects when the bits that the AI form to make a unique sound will play for a prolonged period of time than they are intended, so said bit will keep looping and end up sounding unnatural. You can tell when AI does this because it does something I like to call a guitar riff, which can also be heard in the storyboards. So is it Elisa that sings the final song? Yes. Was it her from the beginning? Sadly not. They probably didn't want to pay her for singing the prototype version of the song like they did with Mythix and Bloomix and Sirenix and Harmonix, so they just had her singing the final version by going, "Hey Elisa, so we have this song that we want you to sing, here is how the song should sound," and they played her the AI version of the song, and that is how Elisa started to sing her version of the song. On the topic of AI, I will also quickly talk about the alleged AI line said by one of the Winx characters. So, just like with Elisa and her song, the leaked storyboards allude to Rainbow generating the voices of the Winx cast for their storyboard sections. The storyboard is from an unreleased episode, so I will just play the audio part for you to not get any context on what is going on. Trust me, by the time the episode actually will get released, you'll forget that the line was from a storyboard specifically.
Flora, we've got this. You shouldn't be straining yourself.
Now, the deal with this line is how deadpan it was delivered. Zuri's portrayal of Aisha always gave more emotion and energy, and it just made Aisha sound more human. Again, I literally praised Zuri in the last section. For her to portray Aisha in such a basic format either means this line was particularly one of the very first recorded lines Zuri did, where she was given no direction whatsoever on how to portray the reboot variant of Aisha, or it was AI. Regardless, this is all allegedly, and we're not going to say that this was 100% AI made, that this was done with the consent of the voice actors or not, but it should still be called out because there were discussions on this online, and we need a bit of clarification on this. This is up to debate, and it's not official, it's not confirmed, and we should all respect the privacy of the voice actors. I still believe that the voice acting done at the end of the day in the episodes was done by human beings, and these actors did put effort into this, which is why we should at the very least respect their effort. And we should not call them out, we should call out Rainbow. Okay, that was the whole deal with AI. Now let's go back to the main show. Amidst the insane leaks that were going around at the time, we received another teaser trailer for the reboot with a planned release date for September 2025. This would end up being the release date in UK, so congrats Rainbow, you finally got that one right. The trailer showcased early made versions of multiple episodes. Actually, most of them are clips from episode 1, some clips from episode 2, 3, and then 6. With some scenes looking bad, but also some scenes looking better than what we ended up getting. I'm cutting the animation team some slack. They are recognized as a low-budget company who probably didn't know that the show they were working on has a pretty high standards and expectations from the audience that would receive the product. I just find it hilarious that Rainbow themselves didn't animate these episodes themselves like they used to, and just decided to have someone else do it for them. They had no problems animating the first sneak peek from Comic-Con, so what stopped them from doing this? Oh, it was the limited budget and time left. Oh, how ballsy can you be manipulating your audience to come watch this reboot with promises that adults who grew up with Winx will love this, and the budget animation being as high as it was for a 3D movie? I'm sure all the money, time, and effort put into multiple concepts and designs ended up being as high as it was for a movie. The time spent on this project is also just as high too, but the time spent on this variant of the reboot? Nah-uh. Not to mention how Igino complained about not having enough budget to do the show anymore, and also not getting funded by the Italian government anymore, so he had to compromise with broadcasters and other companies so they can get funds. Like, yeah, sure, blame it all on fate, bro, whatever you say. He mentions how cartoons feel limited in their creativity because of the compromises they have to go through to be broadcasted on TV. But again, I don't see it happening to other shows at the extent that the Winx is happening, and he is complaining. It's your responsibility to ensure that you find a good broadcaster or a good company that will fund you without having to go to cut down elements that degrade the quality of your product. But sure, blame it on everyone else. It's literally anyone's fault but yours. Should I also add how this man complained in 2023 that nowadays there's too much focus on female characters? Now, keep in mind this is the very same man who boasted about being so progressive 20 years ago. I'm just so disappointed to see such a man have such a response in interviews and still be the creator of a show like Winx. Like, bro, do you know what you worked on all these years? And now you're complaining on the thing that your show is promoting? Last year we got a random show out of nowhere called Mermaid Magic, which, as many people have ended up suspecting, it looked like Rainbow was testing the waters with the new animation by making a new magical girl show that will either succeed or flop depending on how well it will be taken. It didn't have to be a specific legacy to break in the process, so in my opinion, them playing safe was a smart move. The animation for that show was made by Rainbow themselves through Bartle Entertainment, an animation studio they purchased in 2015. Bartle worked on other cartoons that are quite well known, such as the 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show and Teen Titans Go. So more or less, Bartle has experience when it comes to making animated shots and action-oriented scenes look good. When Mermaid Magic came out, all of us suspected that Winx was gonna have a similar animation style. It wasn't the absolute best, but at least it was something compared to what we got here. Why didn't Rainbow animate their own show like they did with Mermaid Magic? Why not put as much love and care and effort into the show that saved you, just like you did, with this 10-episode test run deal?
A reboot, our North Star to create
a new Winx show for a whole new generation.
At the beginning of 2025, we also got the updated final promo poster for the reboot that features the girls in their updated final designs, all ready to kick ass in the fall of 2025. 2 weeks later, news breaks out that Rainbow managed to secure $92 million from an investment with TIC Movie so they can expand to a global reach and IP portfolio. That looks familiar, doesn't it? Wonder how well things will go this time. With how much of a share TAC has over Rainbow is unknown, but in the case of Viacom, Rainbow sold 30% of the company for $83 million, so I think we can estimate around the percentage in the new deal too. Congrats, Eugenio. Now you may have enough money to start your live-action fantasy or whatever. Afterwards, following the next 2 months, everything seemed fine. Until in March, user Hymodraws from Instagram shared proof that AI was used in Aisha's new design and they were an artist working on mermaid magic. The original image, also AI generated, was posted on Pinterest in October of 2023 by who seemed to be a Rainbow artist. This officially confirmed our suspicions, and from there onwards, Rainbow kept on going in a downwards spiral. Ichino denied the usage of AI, saying that it must come from competitors looking to take down Winx. Who? Eugenio, this isn't the 2000s anymore. Your beef with Witch is long far gone. Calm your balls down. His statement ended up getting spread over Rainbow Six's HQ, and as such, people who worked on the reboot started to share the exact same sentence through their posts, although after a while, Eugenio did admit to using AI at Affari Italiani, praising it for being a great revolution that will change the industry. Well, he wasn't wrong about that. The industry did get changed, but the impact is much more severe and people's opinions are far from what was expected. These companies sure did not start coming when people started to boycott them due to their AI usage, leaving people jobless or unmotivated to pursue their passions and dreams anymore. In May of 2025, Ijo participated in an interview on channel Sales and Butter, where some of his comments regarding Winx sparked interest. He mentioned how Netflix had specific demands to satisfy the American audience, and now I wonder what those demands were, because I'm sure they aren't killing Bloom's hot-headed energy, making Flora weep about climate change, or Vexia saying he ain't afraid of a tween. Furthermore, he added that he wasn't fully involved with the reboot, as he was also busy with many other projects. I'm gonna kill someone, I swear! Notice how every time a project fails, he quickly has to say that he wasn't involved in it. Winx Season 5, Winx Season 6, Winx Season 7, Winx Season 8, Fate the Winx Saga, the reboot. Ichino was not involved in the creation of these ones, but he did get involved in Project 57, which was a successful one. What is preventing him from going and participating in the production of the show that at the end of the day keeps them afloat? If it wasn't for the Winx, Rainbow wouldn't be here. Ichino said that himself. So for him to not pay attention to Winx specifically is just so... I'm done. Seriously, I'm done. Ichino, just admit that you don't get yourself part of the actual project and that your name in the credits is just because you made the original show, and that's it. Please, I'm begging you. In the meantime, Winx was about to start promoting the reboot, and in their attempts to build hype for the reboot, they started live streams where they would broadcast episodes from the original show along with the movies. Except when you notice the thumbnail, you will see that it was tempered by AI for the background to be extended, which sacrificed the girls' lower parts of their body. Smooth, Rainbow. Thought you could get away with it since the show is now watched by little girls and boys. Not queer boys because we hate them, just little boys.
Ma le famiglie arcobaleno ci sono nei cartoni o no?
Beh, adesso stanno cominciando a chiedere anche questo. Mi sembra che ci sia un episodio di Peppa Pig in cui c'è una famiglia con due femmine, insomma, non so, di maiale, insomma, due maiali che sono appunto le mamme e il papà, insomma due mamme di questo personaggio, e quindi ecco, sicuramente Hollywood sta spingendo molto in questo senso.
Although we also want the old fans of Winx to be engaged with the reboot too, so at the end of the day, all of them are a massive pack of idiots. At the beginning of summer 2025, Rainbow decided to stop playing dumb and made a post on Facebook where they literally confirmed that they're hiring prompt engineering experts for their projects. The balls to admit that they don't even have someone who can write good prompts to the point they have to look for an expert in writing prompts. I am gagged! But hey, at least it is official now, so no more confusions. In the summer of 2025, we started getting official character trailers that were meant to build up hype, but instead, we got hit with the low quality hammer. They felt the need to have someone speak during these trailers, so instead of, you know, hiring someone who can sound like a spokesperson, they had an 11 Labs AI voice model talk about the Winx characters in such a generic and horrible way. The script feels so weird too. Either this was written by an AI, or the guy who wrote those lines needs to get fired. And jailed. Fired and jailed.
Imagine waking up one day and discovering you're not just an ordinary girl, but a fairy. Bloom wasn't looking for adventure, but magic found her anyway. She may not have all the answers yet, but Bloom never backs down, because true strength isn't just about magic. It's about heart. Stella was born to slay. But don't get it twisted. It's not all lip gloss and tiaras. She might lead with glam, but she's got grit. Stella's not just here to look good. She's here to run the whole show. Soft-spoken? Sure. But don't you dare sleep on the girl who can make a whole jungle bloom with just a whisper. She doesn't just hear how people feel. She feels it right with them. She may lead with kindness, but don't mistake it for weakness. But it's not just about hearing. It's about feeling. She might come off cool, low-key, but inside, she's all emotion turned all the way up. She's not here for drama, but she'll always attend to her friends, showing up for them. Aisha doesn't just take on challenges, she becomes the challenge. Back home, perfection isn't just encouraged, it's required. She doesn't just use technology, she understands it, like it's second nature. She's all about precision and strategy, but she's also learning that not everything can be calculated. Tech that proves that being different isn't a glitch. It's her greatest strength. Some call it transformation, but it's more than a spell or a flash of light. It's a shift. But she's not the only one. Every fairy knows that spark. But Bloom isn't just a mean to men. There's something about her that gets under Icy's skin. This is just not power. She wants to see her fall. This is like a long game. When the time comes, she just turn on Bloom. She can use her own too. Magic doesn't explode. It comes in. She's not one of those unless, of course, she uses her advantage. She has plants. She blows them up. She's not taking on Icy's loyalty. She's here for sword. One of her best makers, she's the youngest. Sword fights when she does something rude. She doesn't just break sword. She is the sword. Because Bloom is not only right. She's not only life. When anything else, all part, and that's not magic. That's what makes her. That's Power's history. It's a warning. Power, she knows secrets. They're watching it. Sometimes it's like it shows you perspective. Not just all logic. It's too long. Romance magic. Yeah, it's complicated. It's also good. Sometimes it's like it's better way. Morales is watching and win itself. Brandon is like, but it's like, oh, yeah, much without because actually it's so close. So show us smart.
It's not just about cheap quality, it's about manipulation. This reboot is not just about digging its own grave, it becomes Rainbow Six's grave.
Timmy doesn't show off. Timmy!
Eventually, the reboot did come out, and of course, the response to it was as expected. People were not happy to see the usage of AI, the low quality animation, and the way the story just seemed so, I don't know, weird. Again, if the reboot was stated from the beginning, like Pop Pixie or other shows, that it is intended for a younger audience, I am sure most people, myself included, would have avoided touching the reboot because it was targeted for a new generation. We no longer participate in it. However, when you go and say that a show is also meant to be watched by the old audience, you instantly invite us to come over. So of course we will come over and watch it if we want to then. Like, it's not going and saying, hey, what are you doing here? Go watch other cartoons, because this is for kids. Because I'm not watching stuff like the new Spider-Man children cartoons that are on TV. I'm watching the old Spider-Man shows. Because I know that the Spider-Man cartoons that are on TV are for children, and I'm not part of that audience. Around the release of the reboot, there was also these images that were released by different accounts that promote Winx Club and are associated with Rainbow in some way or another. These images are also highly AI generated because of the fact that there is certain things that just make no sense, certain images that just look so uncanny, like the blend between 2D and 3D that just, it's not 3D but it's also not 2D, so it's this weird mix, and so it's like, what the heck? And also the uncanniness of certain elements. For example, in Musa's image poster, there is this guitar that she's using to play, and that guitar was not seen in any promotional images ever. The guitar she plays in episode 6 looks different, and the guitar that is shown in the promotional images also looks different. So this guitar is essentially just the random generated guitar for the sake of it. And according to information that we have, apparently Rainbow has an AI trained on Winx images that they are now using to generate promotional images that they later send out to Winx content creators so they can share them on their accounts, which y'all really do not have animators who can pose and do different shots and create backgrounds. You really have to resort to AI to do this. Are y'all really that cheap? I mean, they have to be, because in episode 1, in the background, when Mitzi leaves to go to Bloom in the bathroom, there is this board with AI images that you cannot convince me, even in the slightest, that they are not machine-made. Those are not touched by a human being in the slightest. And if you think they are, you are just gaslighting yourself, my darling. Then one of the most idiotic things that could have happened, in order to promote the release of the Reboot doll line, they had this short on YouTube which featured an AI version of the Stella doll going into a Target store and buying the Winx dolls, which was so obviously AI generated and such a bad AI prompt too. Like, it looks so uncanny and so bad. People called out on Rainbow, on Egino specifically, accounts and people who literally were fans of the show called out on the usage of AI. And Egino specifically said, "We did not use AI for the production of the series. The transformations are even very expensive and paid to Hampa Studio. And all this is very offensive for the hard work of a few hundred people in the last 3 years." Okay, so the 6-year production is now cut to 3 years of production, so this means that for 3 years, Rainbow did jack shit, essentially. They did, in fact, do jack shit, but still, they essentially erased all the things they have done in 2019 and 2022. Okay, sure. The news about the use of AI is deeply baseless and spread by professional haters or competition, unquote. Hey, you know, I want to say for a fact, thank you so much for calling me a professional hater. I was never called professional for anything ever, and I'm beyond honored that at the very least, I am acknowledged as a professional hater because according to him, the fact that I'm calling out on the usage of AI instantly means I'm a hater. Which, okay, if he thinks I'm a hater, good, but he called me out for being a professional hater. I am honored. Spread by professional haters or competition. What competition? What competition? I'm so confused. What competition is this man talking about? Back to quote. "It's a serious insult for all the hundreds of Italian professionals and talents who have worked hard for 3 years to make the series. We have documented with the making of the series how every detail was the result of the work of artists and professionals in our studios. So I'd say, enough with this AI thing. If we want to use it in the future, we won't bother declaring it, but we certainly don't like to be defamed. For the rest of us, we are sorry that you were disappointed. Maybe we are not good enough, or maybe we don't have enough financial resources to do better than this. In any way, the series seems to be liked by the younger guys who approach the saga for the first time, and at least this will allow us to get new fans and continue the dream that Winx Club never dies. Thanks anyways for the criticism that will push us to try and do better." Holy shit! So, okay, there's a lot to unpack. First of all, it's a serious insult for all the hundreds of Italian professionals and talents who worked hard for 3 years to make the series. Do you mean the AI prompt? The AI prompt took offense in us calling it out? Cause y'all didn't give a fuck. Again, like I said, if I would have been an artist who worked on these designs for a reboot and they got replaced by an AI design, I would be pissed. Because my work was reduced to nothing. It would be offensive in that case. His crash out with enough of this AI thing when he confirmed the usage of AI is so bluffing. Like, this man is like, oh god. If we want to use it in the future, we won't bother declaring it. So they just said that if they will use AI, they will no longer confirm it. So they essentially say that they might use AI, but they won't confirm it to us. Okay. Okay, good to know that you did hand out this fact. So if there will be AI stuff in the future, but you will deny it, we can still assume it was AI because you just said that you will no longer confirm it nor deny it. Okay, so no longer transparency. But we certainly don't like to be defamed. As if, again, there are professional haters. Bro, your professional haters are your watchers, are your fans. These are the people you call professional haters. People who call you out on your BS. For the rest of us, we are sorry that you were so disappointed. Maybe we are not good enough, or maybe we don't have enough financial resources to do better than this. Then do an effort and try to gather money so you can have financial resources to do better than this. To push out the final product out to be better instead of resorting to such coward moves to undermine the quality of human work. Like, this is not okay. Like, you're just insulting your fans and the people who worked on your show because you didn't have enough funds. If you don't have enough funds, just don't bother doing the project. I personally would have been fine having a break from Winx, no Winx content for 10 years, but when Winx comes back, it comes back with good quality content. And anyway, the series seems to be liked by the younger guys who approach the saga for the first time, and at least this will allow us to get new fans and continue the dream that Winx Club never dies. A note here. So, first of all, kids, of course, will never be able to tell if something is AI or not, and why AI is such a bad thing. But this is where we are supposed to come forward and push the idea that kids, just like us, the new generation, deserve content just like we had content. The content we had growing up was mature, it was expressive, and it was unique. Kids nowadays are being pushed forward this AI slop, and people go and defend it by saying, oh, but they like it. Did they have anything else that they can watch that is not AI made so they can go and have a different opinion or a different perspective? If you push them AI content constantly in their face, of course this will be their bare minimum and they won't ask for more because they don't know what else they could ask for. And I'm talking about children's aged max 8 because this is the show the reboot is targeted towards, because they don't know that this can be better. This can be a better thing for them. We grew up with shows that are so good, so to see this thing happening is so disgusting. And also, to continue the dream that Winx Club never dies, you just indirectly confirmed that you plan to milk the cow dry. You plan to milk Winx Club until it becomes more of a shadow of its former self than it already is. And it just pains me, psychologically pains me to see that the show that I grew up with started in a certain state, and after years, when I come back to it, I see it literally as a corpse, decayed and deformed in front of me. This is how it feels. And again, it's not that I want to gatekeep the show. I can go now and this is what I will do. I'll go back and watch the first 3 seasons and the first 2 movies and be happy that this was the Winx that I grew up with. However, the fact that children will not get to see that Winx until a couple of years later is so depressing. And not to mention, again, you made the reboot so rushed that you still need to have context on what Winx is all about. So kids need to see the original Winx to get a concrete idea of what is going on, because the reboot moves too fast. So therefore, they will still have ground to compare. So they will have to compare the reboot that is now out with the original show that is out. So you have these 2 grounds now. So to me, this reboot feels like just Winx content out because we have been starved by content. To this I will say, genuine question, and now I'm asking y'all viewers, do you really want to watch a show and new content out just because it's new content? Or do you want said content to be impactful and good story instead of just content? Also, this may sound a bit petty, but I find very interesting how now there are apparently rumors that Rainbow plans on asking Hempa Studios to reanimate the entire first half of the reboot, since apparently they are the ones who are going to take care of the second half of the reboot. And I just find it so interesting how they boasted about the animation being so high budget, they underperformed, and now they're kind of trying to clear their tracks. I just find that a bit just a bit hilarious. So, this is the entire rundown of the reboot. I'm not trying to downplay the passion that was invested in the reboot. There had to have been people who did their work with love and care, and hence that's why I was able to find a few things that I could nicely talk about when it comes to this show. However, like I said at the beginning of the video, the correct way to judge a piece of media is if the good parts manage to outweigh the bad ones. And sadly, this reboot is unable to achieve that. To me, this reboot looks like corporate greed and an attempt to capitalize off of a memorable show that had an existing audience, starved and waiting for new content to come out. The sheer disinterest in what made the original show iconic is noticeable, clear as day, and I simply cannot support a company that wants to do this to their own audience. Not to mention that this is just the first half of the first season of the reboot. I don't know about you, but I feel like the reboot has been a wake-up call when it comes to what Rainbow truly desires to pursue. They want to make cheap storylines targeted at young kids, with their income supported by the fans who blindly support Rainbow just because they made Winx. I feel like I wasted more time than I should have on the reboot, and I personally will not watch the second half of the reboot for this reason. The following Winx videos that will come out on my channel will feature different topics, and we will not touch the reboot as much. If you do like the reboot and wish to support it, all I can say is I respect your choice, you do you, and I wish you the best. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. It took a lot of time to make and put together, so I hope this video has been entertaining for you. And also thank you so much to all the people who have helped me with the information and the images and the links to websites and articles so that I could share them with you guys. Without them, this would not have been possible. And don't forget to stay cool, stay weird, and I'll see you guys next time.